IOC is now exposed corruption with China now because the next game is in China in 2022 for the Winter Games, and one of the commissioners of the IOC is now being exposed for corruption in China. And then people, it was like I said, the biggest link in all of Reddit about 14 hours ago when I was there. And then people started saying, "Oh, what an interesting coincidence that this comes to light just hours after the Tokyo Games ends, and we're already drumming up, reasons to boycott the Beijing 22 Games." And this was slightly predicted. In fact, it's predicted by Peter Zeihan, who you hear me talk about often, who to me is like the most has the best track record for predicting things. So I'm fascinated with his predictions, and he says, yeah, he predicts that there will be a boycott by people inside of America. It's a question of how many and who, and the scale is unknown currently. But he predicts if America does kind of as a country boycott the Beijing Games, that Beijing in turn will take over American businesses in China. Like your businesses are no longer, your employees at these business. By the way, Cuba did the same thing back when the people that didn't study the Cuban Revolution. Essentially, Castro took over the Shell oil company it started with the banks, actually, that the banks, he said, no, now the banks are Cuban banks. They're no longer American banks. And the Americans were like, say what? And then the oil companies, oh, Shell Dutch. Oh, that's nice. Thank you for your oil refinery. We'll use that very much. Actually, that's what it was Cuba had bought a bunch of oil from the Soviets and wanted to refine it in Cuba using the Dutch refineries, Dutch Shell oil. And Dutch said, no, you can't use our refineries to refine this, Russian oil. He says, of course I can. It's on my soil. And you're going to refine this oil for us, because you wouldn't sell it to us. So we bought it from the Russians. We're going to refine it here. Dutch said, no. Okay, well, then we're taking over the refineries. Thank you very much. And that's what caught the attention of the Americans, that this guy Castro, who took over, they already had their eye out for him. But then, that was kind of a declaration of war, led to the Bay of Pigs. Castro and Che managed to fight off the Americans at the Bay of Pigs. And then they took over the banks and the hotels and everything else. The Hilton Hotel, which became the Libre Hotel, and all of that. So, that can be what happens. So we've seen it historically where, when things get really sour, then all of a sudden all of your corporate interests in that country become nationalized by the country there. And Peter Zeihan said that if we boycott the games, it's likely that China will reciprocate by nationalizing any American interests on Chinese soil, which that would be wild. I'm curious who has the most exposure to China though at this point. So will be interesting to see. And that's when I saw the headline yesterday, because he's been predicting that for a few weeks now, that this Beijing 2022 Winter Games, to what degree will American and its allies and who inside will be boycotting, and who's going to be most vocal in leading this. There will be efforts to try to boycott it. The question is who's going to be pushing them, and to what degree will people follow that, and will the state itself formally officially adopt that policy, and if so, how will China respond? And he says, and his prediction is, if America does as a state boycott it, he believes China will reciprocate by nationalizing American business interests in China. That's the summary.
Hey, Tyler, what's interesting about 2022, the American casino companies that have casinos in Macau, as well as the Australian, all the concessions in Macau are up for renewal in 2022.
Oh, interesting. So they would potentially lose their holdings there anyways, I guess. Is that like a 100-year lease or something?
No, not even close. They got them in the mid '90s. I
Okay,
think it was like a 10 or 15 years. They've extended it because they
right.
already should have dealt with the renewals. Most likely, what most people had expected is what Singapore did. Singapore, where there's Sheldon Adelson the late Sheldon Adelson, his company has a casino in Singapore, and the other one is owned by Genting from Malaysia. And all they did was when their stuff was up for renewal, they just raised the taxes on them. They said basically you have to pay a higher tax because we didn't realize how lucrative this was, and you have to make some more capital investments in non-casino assets, more entertainment or conventions or whatever. So that's what they're doing in Singapore. And people thought maybe that's what would happen in Macau. Las Vegas Sands, which is was Sheldon's company, which is still in existence, is they've actually put a lot of money into Macau in the last 2 years, trying to look good to the Chinese.
So apparently, I'm
Hey,
reading.
since you mentioned Singapore, today is Singapore's 56th birthday, the national day today.
Okay, so
Sing a song, Tyler.
to who?
To Singapore.
I don't speak. I don't speak what Singaporean, or I don't know any Singapore songs, unfortunately. So apparently, Nancy Pelosi has already called for a boycott on the Beijing Games. That's the headline from Reddit. So yeah, it's going to get crazy. Pelosi
You know,
calls this. This is being reported from Reuters. It says, hold on a second here. Pelosi, yeah, it's the headline from Reuters, but this is not breaking news. Pelosi calls for U.S. and world leaders to boycott China's 2022 Olympics. U.S. House of Representatives, by the way, for the non-Americans, Pelosi is one of the top 10 most powerful people in American politics, maybe even top 5. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday called for U.S. diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, criticizing China for human rights abuses and saying global leaders who attend will lose their moral authority. So, sorry, go ahead. Was that Lakeisha?
it was me. It was
Messy.
me.
Hey.
Yeah, these games have been political for like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The Sochi Olympics was in Russia was awful. Like everybody, almost Russian athletes couldn't compete this time around because of the doping and other things. And the Qatar, the FIFA World Cup. My goodness, how many powerful people came down with that corruption. But still, the games are still being scheduled to go ahead in 2022.
Yes.
So these are, yeah, a lot political, right? But we'll see. We'll see how other countries will get involved in it, and who will fall down for it. But yeah.
Yeah, of course it's still scheduled. The problem is if America boycotts it and asks its allies to boycott it, then that will be unprecedented. And then this charge that the IOC, one of the chair people on the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is now being accused of corruption with China. Essentially, his personal foundation was receiving funding from China, and this is where it could get really messy really quickly if they're not really careful. So, yeah, there's already a ton of headlines in the past couple days. Here's just a bunch. France 24, the biggest outlet in France, says Tokyo hands Olympic baton to Beijing, but virus and boycott calls way. And indeed, the virus is now starting to spread in multiple provinces across China, and that's a headline we're going to get into, which is China's already punishing many of the leaders of the provinces where it has spread, especially Nanjing, where it was brought into China through the airport on a Russian flight. And so if they aren't able to control COVID, which they're going to have a really hard time controlling Delta because it's not easily controllable like Alpha was, as everyone in Asia understands. This ties more than anyone. Boy, are they going to have their hand, because it's not that far away, right? I mean, it's 1 year away, so they've got I don't know 9 months to get it fully under control. Delta. and hope
You
it.
know what's really,
Yeah.
really interesting, Tyler? I was actually meeting with one of my advisees this morning who happens to be Chinese and stuck in China. And he, told me that Delta is spreading, but in these minor cities, I don't know what the outbreak is in the larger cities. If one person is, diagnosed with it, they shut the city down. So
Right.
he commented, and he was in Thailand last year when COVID first hit,
Yep.
but he commented on how strong the government has been in controlling the spread of Delta over the past, couple of months since it started
Oh
to
yeah.
spread in Asia.
Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, you got to kind of admire that. I want to find the article. It's in my list of tabs that I'm scrolling through at the moment. Here it is from Bloomberg. The headline reads: China punishes dozens of officials as Delta outbreak spreads. More than 30 officials disciplined for mishandling the virus. Variant persistent spread tests China's COVID zero strategy. China has punished a slew of officials for failing to curb a COVID-19 outbreak that spawned nearly 900 symptomatic infections across the country in less than a month, a resurgence that complicates Beijing's strategy of keeping the virus out entirely and, of course, jeopardizes the Olympic Games in Beijing starting in, I guess, 11-ish. No, it's the Winter Games 2022. So when is the date for that set to start? Let's figure that out. It's
2022, I think it'll probably be January, February.
so this coming
Yeah.
February?
A
So-
few months later,
No,
I think.
2022.
Yeah,
and
this coming February
that
would
means
be
a few months
2022.
later. Coming.
So you got
January or
August,
February.
September, October,
Yeah.
November, December, January. So in 6 months it
Feb-
starts?
February 4th, between February 4th
yeah,
and February 20th. That's when it is.
yes.
So it starts in 6
Yeah.
months. So that gives them
Yes.
then they're likely gonna have to cancel the games now due to Delta.
No, actually, I just heard actually on CNN before coming to work this morning, and then they were talking about that how China is actually prepared and ready way before time. They said even as of today they're ready with the venues and things like that.
Yeah, of course the venues are ready. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is the virus.
Yes.
They're not ready with the virus. That's what matters.
In fact, they were saying if Tokyo Olympic was cancelled, then they have a good reason to do so. But if Tokyo Olympic 2020 is just done and over, right? So they have no legit reason to do it. But I think the only worry is because most of the people there, even when they're vaccinated with the Chinese vaccine, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that's part of the problem.
really
Well, let's explain this. And Lakeisha and I can tell you firsthand. Thailand got Sinovac first. It was given all the medical professionals first and used in China. Now, Thailand has made it illegal to bring in Sinovac now. That's how ineffective Sinovac is here. That's how pointless Sinovac is against Delta, is we're now making it, the court has told the government, you cannot bring Sinovac in anymore. It's useless. It's a waste of time and money. Our people are dying. Everyone who got Sinovac is dying. Stop with the nonsense. That's what the highest court in Thailand has ruled. So just to give you a heads up of what China can expect, because they're using Sinovac.
Tyler, leaving aside COVID, the last time the United States boycotted an Olympics was 1980, when because it was in Moscow, and we were supposedly upset because they had invaded Afghanistan. We didn't really get anything accomplished by boycotting the Olympics, and not to mention, by the way, in my own view, I think the United States, we would have been better off if Russia won that war. If the Soviets won that war, we probably wouldn't have had 9/11. So,
I think they may have also heard what Tyler say, that the Chinese can take this opportunity to take all the DNA of the athletes. Maybe they are afraid
That was
to go
my
too.
kind of a funny joke, I guess.
But it sounds more and more logical the more we talk about it.
But there's no question. Like, when people are coming in, by the way, I found a headline yesterday that Qatar has now been exposed that they were doing DNA testing of all of their own citizens and every visitor through their airports. Like, they got caught, exposed. But I've heard from friends who are in the space of doing DNA testing that many countries are aware that other countries are doing it, so they all feel like they're going to be have a disadvantage if they don't do it themselves. And it's kind of this, in the same way that countries want to nuclearize because their neighbors or rivals have it, they feel the need to build DNA databases. And so my point is China's actually, it's in the New York Times has reported that China's doing DNA databases. So this is not my theory. This is the New York Times. Take that for what it's worth. They're not always correct, mind you.
Right. I'm sure FBI has a database. I'm sure Singapore has a database. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I mean, it's more for policy. I mean,
Right.
policing, right? Just in
The
case
point
anything
is
goes
when
wrong. Yeah.
Olympic athletes come in, that's very interesting DNA to study. And by the way, when we had the health newsroom yesterday, or depending on what time zone you're in, about 14 hours ago, Dr. Donish shared a headline, and this is truly wild. Let me pull this up. It's in the Tech News Twitter account right now. It was like the tweet we did 5 tweets ago at TNATW. So just twitter.com/TNATW, and then the headline reads, mass resignations at scientific journal over ethically fraught Chinese genetic papers. And check this. This is a wild article. So I'm just going to give you a little taste of it. It says, mass resignations at scientific journal over ethically fraught China genetics papers. And here's the quote is in the headline. It's the subheadline. It says, this situation is creating a shameful embarrassment that reflects poorly on all medical genetics journals, on the entire medical genetics community. And what happened is China is submitting papers to the leading medical journals, which is Wiley, and the papers are about the genetic differences between Uyghurs and Tibetans and ethnically Han Chinese. And this is driving the genetic community a bit crazy, such that several of the board members, 8 members of the editorial board of the scientific journal, have resigned after it published a slew of controversial papers that critics fear could be used for DNA profiling and persecution of ethnic minorities in China. Which means obviously they're not only are they genetically sampling them, they're coming to conclusions based on the data. That's the worrying next step. Of course, it's one thing to build the database; it's another thing to start saying, based on this data, this and this and this is going to happen. And that's why these 8 members of this editorial board of one of the most prestigious medical journals are resigning, because somebody foolishly published this research. So it says the journal, the Molecular Genetics and Genomic Medicine, is the latest to get caught up in a controversy involving ethically fraught research. And it shows that the journal's editor-in-chief has been slow to respond to queries about the papers, which involve research on Tibetans and Uyghurs among the ethnic groups, and were first brought to her attention in March. The journal is published by Wiley, a multinational company based in New Jersey, is one of the world's most premier scientific publishers. Studies involving DNA profiling, facial recognition, and organ transplantation have sparked they're publishing studies about organ transplantation from Uyghurs and Tibetans. Oh boy, as has been rumored for a very long time, that they're doing forced organ harvesting of Uyghurs, by the way. So this is not
These are the receipts.
Yeah. Well, no, they're publishing their own receipts saying, here's the research of, organ transplant.
I know.
But anyway, this is the first time that so many members of the board's editorial journal, 8 of 25, have resigned in response to such an issue. The papers were flagged by Yves Moreau, a bioinformatician at the University of Leuven in Belgium, who over the past few years has waged a tireless campaign to get journals to retract troubling or unethical papers. His quest began in 2015 when Kuwait announced plans for compulsory collection of, so my apologies, it wasn't Qatar, it was Kuwait. So when Kuwait announced its plans for compulsory collection of DNA from all citizens, residents, and visitors, he helped spearhead an international campaign against the law and won an early victory. When it was overturned the following year, he became convicted. Oh, he became...
Tyler,
yes?
Cal Patel in the room.
Oh, wow. Cal?
Welcome
Cal
I would
Paddle.
listen
I've
to him
heard
to
of him.
stay
I've heard of this guy. Has
strong.
anyone seen this
You
guy
guys,
before?
Bad influence.
Did he
you
drop
guys are
his
just.
hair so much that we cannot recognize
Oh,
him?
please don't mod me, man.
Peer
Please don't.
pressure.
I'm going away.
You
I'm like,
guys, I
no.
can't believe
I
he
came
did
for 2
that.
seconds.
I
I
blame
came for 2
Heyman.
seconds,
I
Does
blame
he
man.
have a
Cheryl.
bio? Is he a potential?
No,
Is he a troll?
He's
Might
got
be
a
a
few
bot.
followers. Yeah.
Is he a
Is
bot?
it the real
you
one? I thought
guys.
he's the waiver.
Just be honest,
Cal!
Cal. You pocket
You
fell
know.
into this, huh?
This
Do
is
you
a.
want? Do you know actually?
Is this a
You
bot?
guys.
What's going on?
You guys want to
Oh,
know
you
what
got the
actually
green
happened?
bean?
It sounds like the real thing.
Yeah, I just no. I'm leaving, man. I'm leaving. Like,
Let's give you.
you can't do this to me.
Yeah.
So here's what happened, guys. I follow the Twitter chat, like people are just chatting about stuff, and man, these guys pull me in. It's like so much FOMO. We're just talking about something,
Heyman. He's not
and
even
then
here.
and then they put all these gifts, and Cheryl knows me too well. She's like, "Here's the link. Here's the link. Here's the link."
I said
I was
just
like,
click
"What
the
the
link.
heck? Here's
Stay
the link."
strong, Cal. Stay strong.
And then Heyman, who's not here by the looks of it, but he kind of sent something that was like TikTok, and he had like a little, oh
Hypnotist.
gosh. But
She was a
anyway, you guys,
hypnotist.
We'll just give
you're
you.
doing well.
Here's what you missed, Cal. America won the Olympics. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, by one
Hey,
goal.
That's
I wanted to come back and tell Cheryl that, man.
Yeah, congrats,
I wanted to come back
breaking
Congrats.
and
Now it's
news.
over. Thanks.
I wanted to like come back and just mention, and even the gold on the
Yeah.
goals by one.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
By
Cal,
one.
I'm just happy that Japan won baseball.
Hey, I'm impressed with. Oh yeah, that's true. I
Yeah,
knew
the
you would do
pitching is
that.
good.
But
Yeah.
no, that was surprising, right? No, or maybe.
How's
Yeah.
vacation going?
They are very, very
Hey, it's
happy.
pretty
First
good,
time
man.
Very
ever.
good.
Hey,
Yeah.
very, very good. Family in really good shape.
Good.
Anushka's come back from Dyson. Yeah,
So
thanks a lot. Sorry for
no.
interrupting.
So
I'm gonna leave soon. I'm gonna leave soon.
I know we know you are. So it's been 1 week without the Cal factor, and we're chugging
You
along.
guys don't need me. You don't need me.
No,
This
it's
is
not
Tyler's
the
a
brand.
mess.
No.
Tyler's
It's a
a
brand,
mess.
man.
Day.
It's a
We
brand.
mention your name every day, but just Tyler almost forgot how to pronounce your name.
Yeah, when we see these tweets from someone named Cal Paddle, we were trying to figure out if who it
Cal
is.
Paddle.
Yeah,
We pour one out for the homie
Yeah.
every day.
yeah.
All the time.
And
Cal
then,
Paddle.
but it's
Yeah.
been 1 week. We've got at least one more week, maybe two, without the Cal factor.
More, man.
And
More, man.
we're
Like
eagerly
August.
awaiting your return. So
No, hey, listen, it's fun. Hey, it's fun. Do take time off with your kids. I'm telling you
Yeah.
one thing, because they grow up. Shit, they grow up.
Yeah.
Like 20 and 16.
Yep.
I know everyone knows this on this stage, but
yeah,
well worth it, man. And this stuff will continue, right?
Yeah.
Brands. I mean, like this, and so yeah, that's one thing I've learned. Just anyway. Hey, listen, I'm gonna leave soon. I'll
Okay.
listen to one more story.
Okay.
I'm still okay.
It's like a
Good.
family
Better be a good one,
reunion.
Tyler.
yeah.
Better be a good one.
Well, Cal, what's your favorite one you want to share?
I have been reading the news, man. Like I can't get in on this. I've been following some of the China stuff, of course, around the investments and stuff. But other than that, let me just see what you got.
So
man.
on the birth, it turns out it's the birth rate. I think you already knew that. Ray Dalio, one of the biggest investors in the world and one of the biggest investors in China, came out to correct Bloomberg and TechCrunch and others. He felt compelled to go on CNBC to let everyone know it's about the birth rate, which we were screaming about here. And now that they're cracking down on the price of milk powder and baby formula, that's all you need to know, that it's about the birth rate. When it comes to the education crackdown, it's a separate issue than the nationalization of the data. Oh, and by the way, I've got a headline that Cal, you'll appreciate coming by for this one. I watched my friends from the All In podcast. Of course, we're talking about the China crackdown, and like everyone else, they don't understand it's about the birth rate. That's okay, because they don't have friends on the ground there. That's fine. That's one of the benefits.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Even Chamath, he put a nice summary to it.
Yeah,
like,
very.
But he didn't bring in the birth rate at all.
Correct, because they don't know, because they don't have any friends there. So, and we wouldn't either if we didn't have David Chang, in all fairness. And it's, due to the nature of tech news around the world, we're able to find out more than nearly any other news source, because we've got people from all over the planet, geographically and professionally, who can fill us in on what's going on the ground. And it's always different than the headlines say. So I don't fault, Chamath and David and Jason are brilliant, but if you don't have people on the ground, that's what this room is about. And that's what gives us the unique, unfair advantage. And that's why when I'm listening to the podcast, I'm like, I got to ping Jason and let him know They're just fundamentally missing what's going on. Thankfully, Ray Dalio jumps on CNBC to let people know, because he's invested tens of billions of dollars in China. He just wrote a book about China. He knows China. He's been investing billions in China every year for over a decade. So my point is, on Didi, I learned something new as well from someone on the ground. Somebody from China was listening to the All In podcast, like Ray Dalio, felt compelled to make his own video response on YouTube to let them know that they're missing out on the local perspective. Which is, in the case of Didi, this is interesting, Cal. We were trying to figure out, why is the government so hot on Didi's data, right? It's very clear. They're all up into Didi's data. Why are they so concerned about Didi's data, right? We couldn't figure it out.
Yes,
It is
yeah, we were
geodata.
asking that. Yeah.
Turns out Didi there was a rape in a couple years ago inside of a Didi ride. After that, Didi made it a requirement to put cameras inside of all the cars. Chinese government officials traditionally use Didi. All those rides and conversations are recorded in their data silos. Now you know why China's worried about Didi's data. That's China. That's
Someone
what
mentioned that.
Cheryl just said in Japanese. There you go. Now we know. That's the Japanese phrase for, oh, there it is. So
yeah, that's the kind of insight you don't get unless you know the thing.
Unless you're.
But I mean, just so that, yeah, I mean, just so when people when you just mentioned the All In podcast, right? So I've been catching up on some podcasts,
Right.
and that's a pretty good one.
Right.
I've been catching up on some of the ones that Dan's been mentioning. Even my friend Dan is still a friend. You know, I like him, even though I like to be a bit more optimistic about things. But anyway, I've been reading some of those, so it's very good to see some of those. But one of the things, you know, Chamath very clearly is such a clear speaker and a clear articulator of thought, right?
Yes.
But he articulates it, but he doesn't have the insight locally. Right. It's so interesting that you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Yep. Like, you know, and even like just knowing people in China and just having been there, there has to be something deeper than, hey, state capitalism, which was there when we first went there with Best Buy, right? We knew that it was about the government running the companies. That was like, you know, insight from 10 years ago, because that's just how it works. That's how China works. But there was something more underneath this one with the timing, etc., which got pulled out by our discussions here. So you know, that's another reason why, you know, it's so hard not to have FOMO on these broader discussions with the, you know, all these smart people on the discussion. Because very few formats have that.
Yeah, we had Monica come in here and tell us about the central bank digital currency with India, why they were cracking down on Bitcoin. No journalist anywhere outside of India knew why India is cracking down on Bitcoin. Somebody comes in, oh yeah, I just spoke to my friends at the central bank. They're planning a central bank digital currency. What? Like, you don't get this without the people on the ground. If something happens in Japan, and we got Tomoko and Cheryl there, if something happens in the US, and by the way, being an American living in Asia and working in Europe for over a decade, I'm constantly explaining what's really going on in America in a way that Europeans just fundamentally misunderstand, despite the fact that they've got awesome press all over Europe. But if you don't have the local American perspective of why the two parties do this bizarre dance that they do with each other, if you're didn't grow up in it, and you know, you're just going to not have the cultural context, which is oftentimes is what's driving a lot of the behaviors. So good. Thank you for popping by, Cal. Please
chill. I'm going to chill for a few minutes here.
And please do your weekly, your week pop-in, so we can kind of share with you the big reveal. And the big story perhaps in the next week is, I'm predicting there's going to be this big, now that there's COVID in China, 9 provinces, the leaders are being punished for letting it spread because their winter game starts in 6 months in February. And they've got over 200 cases of Delta. The Delta is a whole new animal. Will they be able to control it in time? Because now the winter athletes are like, it's 6 months away. You've got Delta spreading uncontrolled at the moment. Can they control it in time? Right? So there's that. And then you got Nancy Pelosi already calling for a boycott of the games. Will that boycott call continue to spread? Peter Zeihan is predicting, if America takes a formal stance on Nancy Pelosi's, just one baby step away from the president boycotting the games. I mean, she's, the Speaker of the House, for God's sake. So if you already have the Speaker of the House calling for a boycott, if America does formally boycott it and asks its allies to boycott it, his prediction is that China will reciprocate by nationalizing American interests in China, meaning the businesses, what Apple offices or whatnot, or Apple retailers, for example, would be the first case that comes to mind, although they might get a carve out given the amount of business they do there. But let's see what happens with this. It's because the IOC, one of the chair people of the IOC, one of the board members of the IOC, is been revealed in Reddit yesterday, was a top story in Reddit yesterday, that his personal foundation had received money from China. And
I was going to ask about this, Tyler. Is this the same one that pushed Japan to do the Olympics this year?
the IOC, yeah.
No, meaning this person.
Oh no,
Oh
no,
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 of
no,
course not.
no. This person is leading the China games.
Okay, it's not like the director of the IOC or anything.
It's close to that, though. I want to find the headline so I can read it. Anyway, so that's what's going. That's one of the big developing dramas. On the other ones to catch Cal up is Activision. The employees continue to do what they're doing. It's kind of simmered down a bit. We're not getting daily headlines on that, but Cal, the big story is the Apple photo scanning with Snowden and everyone jumping in, warning Apple that this is, you're opening Pandora's box by scanning people's
The one on the one that was
children.
the
supposed
child
to,
abuse
yeah,
photo
the children,
database. Yeah,
yeah.
because
Yeah, I saw the original headlines, and then so people have been jumping in. I didn't know Snowden had jumped in. I missed that
Snowden's like, are
altogether.
you insane?
Wow.
Like if you let the idea is this is not Apple's doing. This is being pushed on them by the government, kind of nice, because no doubt Apple and the government are talking endlessly, especially now in the face of these big, anti big tech company bills, that are in the Senate. So, or in the House and the Senate. So if Apple's in regular communications with Washington and Washington's like, what we'd really like you to do is this, child abuse database. If Apple agrees to do it, which they are doing, it sounds like this was not Apple's idea to do this. It's the government's. And then you give them 1 inch. If you agree to do this one use case, they're going to take that inch and turn it into a mile. And
CNBC had a headline that said Apple's reputation is at risk. I mean, I didn't delve into it. A reputation for being, like a
yeah,
privacy secure kind of platform. But yeah,
Th-
I got it.
This is, but if you look at the trends that we've learned from Professor Tyler and Cal's class, this is really to build the nuts and bolts for Apple to succeed globally. When you think about it, if you want to go into India, you better have the nuts and bolts and the road laid down to apply the filters that the Indian government wants you to do to comply with their local regulations. From a PR perspective, this is probably the safest area you could pick to monitor. From a taste perspective, this is probably the most distasteful area that the public would be able to make a quick decision about. Yes, child abuse is wrong. We think that we should stop it. Absolutely. Should this enable this right to, privacy? What is privacy? Open the question on a topic that isn't necessarily tied to terrorism. Because if you went terrorism, China could easily argue back. That's exactly what we're doing here in Xinjiang.
the other huge story going on is the Bitcoin, the whole American bear hugging of the crypto space with the infrastructure bill, with the provisions around crypto. It looks like they're going to bear hug it to death. I mean, that's what it appears to be at the moment. And it seems intentional from my perspective. May can chime in, but and as I said from the very minute the EFF found that provision, I said, "Oh, this is going to force everyone out of the U.S." And now you even have Jack Dorsey saying in Twitter to the American politicians like Ted Cruz, "Hey, just so you know, this is going to force everyone out of America
Tyler,
to continue what they're doing." Yes, I may.
a couple of
Yeah.
points. One, well, happy Monday. The first point is that's exactly what's happened, apparently, from my networks and the people that I follow for years now. It looks like the community has really rallied forward quite hard and fast. And Jack's kind of also solidifying what the community is doing, which is basically they're educating the community further to lean towards the Loomis and to say no to the other one. And it's moving. There are senators that are now questioning the verbiage. So it is moving because, quite frankly, I'm a developer, and it's inside that. It's inside that. Wagner is the other one, the one that we don't want. It would also make me not able to develop smart contracts. Like literally, it would actually hold back the development in the tech as well, which is why Jack is on top of it too, because it will take a lot of tech jobs and a lot of work around the space and innovation out of the U.S. And I think now the senators are sort of cooling their jets a bit and taking a moment to breathe and have a cup of coffee and really listen to what is the plight of the developer, the technologists, those people that are really not even doing anything other than building on the platforms, right? And it's making the people building on the platforms just as guilty, which is a bit weird, in my opinion. It's a bit kind of nonsensical. But again, also those in the community are also noticing that it's fear and doubt and that the community is also pushing back because Bitcoin's actually rising. So the community is pushing back hard. And that's where, the bear hug could happen and could be attempted to happen. But at some point, the biggest argument is that there's a lot of older people inside these decision-making capacities that really have no clue about this tech and what it could do to help a lot of use cases, right? Of course, the use cases that seem to be the most popular are the ones that are making people FOMO in, ape in, degen in, because they just want to make money. You know what I'm saying? That's like really stupid because you never make money that quick without getting wrecked. But that is sort of the mindset of what people that are FOMOing in. But there are a lot of people that are actually working in the space, and like me, like I'm developing and working and I'm studying and doing my smart contract certification. So like there's people like me that are working in the space and I'm like, wait a second, wait. Don't screw me over because you guys are all greedy or whatever. So I think they're coming forward to really look at it. But on a sidebar note, you asked a question last week that relates and pertains to this, which is you mentioned your question, my thoughts on Binance CEO. Okay. Now, this is something interesting that came up over the course of the weekend because I was listening in on all the rooms and listening to my folks that have been in the space for a while, is that someone must have tipped off this gentleman, his buddies in his network, to get out of Binance.
Oh, the American Binance CEO guy
before
resigned.
he gets taken down with them.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really a very common thread in conversation among all of the places that I was floating around in conversations. It was a common thread that his network warned him in some indirect way to get the hell out of Dodge, out of Binance, because they're going after Binance and they don't want him to be a casualty. So he's out. That's part of the reason why, because I think CZ Binance wanted him to help them with regulators. And what ended up happening, obviously, is friendship over, there it goes. If he's got network and friendships of years and decades with the other folks, why would he align with CZ Binance just because he's a CEO? No, he probably just leaned out and said, okay, I'm going to bounce. And he stuck with his mates, which means if he came from that sector of the business, it's like me if I came from fashion for 20, 30 years and someone tipped me off, right? Of course, yeah, I'd align with the people that I trust and that I've known for years, and I would step out. But this is just what I would do, in my opinion.
Okay.
But this is what you were asking for last week, and that was what I wanted to sort of get confirmation on.
So let's run through the biggest stories at this very moment. Happy Monday, August 9th. The top story at this very moment across the interwebs. Not the most important story, although maybe it is. And it's about Apple's 3 new child safety initiatives, what critics are getting wrong, and the completely legitimate slippery slope concerns from experts. And a related headline to that is now 5,500 industry experts have signed a letter to Apple begging them to reconsider. That's a lot. That's a lot of industry folks. So let me find that one. Somebody just tweeted that in. Who tweeted that one in? Because I just saw it, and now it's buried deep in my endless bar of tabs, of browser tabs somewhere here. Anyway, it'll be interesting. You see, it's already part of iOS 15. It has to come out. There's no stopping it now. It's baked into iOS 15, which they have to release in about 3 weeks. It's yeah, the toothpaste is out of the tube already. So we'll see what happens now. And Apple did get blowback immediately when it was revealed that this was coming, and they responded to that blowback and internally and said, "Yeah, we see all the blowback. We're going to just continue to deal with it as it happens." And you know,
Tyler, the question that comes on that, just having heard you say about the blowback, which I hadn't been following much, um, but so you think, right? Like they would have worked this through. Like they would have had a bunch of scenarios
right?
on this. What's come out on that discussion? Because I mean, they've got people in Washington, they've got people, they've got lobbyists everywhere, they've got smart people, they've got consultants, they got McKinsey. I mean, they got like they not McKinsey, but they got anyone. Like they're hiring everyone before they put a big thing out there
Yeah,
like this,
huge
right?
move.
On
Yeah,
privacy, etc. They've got the best privacy experts in the world,
yeah.
like that are consulting to them. Do you think they like just they know this is all they're just going to write this through, they've got a decision, they've made it, or do you think there's just like missed it, like just missed that it would be this big a deal?
I
I doubt if it's going to feel like that. Not Apple, right?
hmm. Here it is.
Anyway,
Here it is.
that's just a
Yeah,
thought. There's something,
I just
yeah.
want to read the article. It says an open letter against Apple's privacy invasive content scanning technology. Security and privacy experts, cryptographers, researchers, professors, legal experts, and Apple consumers decry Apple's planned move to undermine user privacy and end-to-end encryption. And it's got choice quotes from the the EFF, which is the Electronic Frontier Foundation, who are generally considered the good guys in figuring out these kinds of issues. They are a mix of lawyers and legitimate geeks of the highest caliber, and they're coming out saying it's impossible to build a client-side scanning system that can only be used for sexually explicit images sent or received by children. As a consequence, even a well-intending effort to build such a system will break key promises of the messenger's encryption itself and open the door to broader abuses. That's not a slippery slope. That's a fully built system, just waiting for external pressure to make the slightest change. And that's
Hey, Cal, do you think this is a faux pas on Apple's part that's akin to what happened with New Coke and Coca-Cola? You know, something on that level?
Yeah, no, Ken, that's exactly that. That's my curiosity, right? Sometimes really, really, really smart companies do really dumb things, like really, and they've got all the inputs, they've got everything, and they just miss something. And I'm just curious whether it's just missed something or we got this, we got scenario A, B. I used to do this. Like you have 15 scenarios. We're exiting China. What are the 15 scenarios, right? Chinese government screws us. We can't do any own label stuff anymore. B, this, C, D, D. You put them all on the table, right? And then you ask all the smartest brains and everyone you can get hold of, experts locally everywhere, and then you go through each scenario. I mean, that's standard practice, right, for a large company like
so
this, and
so
especially Apple,
so
right?
this
So what did they miss?
well
You know,
yeah,
that's yeah, good
I'm
point,
tweeting out
Ken.
this letter because you got to see it. There's some other really choice quotes in here where it says, for example, um, one researcher in security and privacy warns Apple sells iPhones without FaceTime in Saudi Arabia. I didn't know that. That's really interesting because local regulations prohibits encrypted phone calls. That's just one example of many where Apple's bent to local pressure. What happens when local regulations in Saudi Arabia mandate that messages be scanned not for sexual abuse, children's sexual abuse, but for homosexuality or for offenses against the monarchy? Oh boy, wait until Thailand does that. And then the EFF has another statement in this letter where it says, take the example in India, where recently passed rules include dangerous requirements for platforms to identify the origins of messages and pre-screen content before it goes live, which we now have seen. We've been talking about that. So, and then the companies have to report what they took down preemptively through their algorithms. New laws in Ethiopia requiring content takedowns of quote unquote misinformation in 24 hours may apply to messaging services in many other countries. Often those with authoritarian governments have passed similar laws. Apple's changes would enable such screening, takedowns, and reporting in its end-to-end messaging. The abuse cases are easy to imagine. Governments that outlaw homosexuality might require the classifier to be trained to restrict apparent LGBTQ plus content, or an authoritarian regime might demand the classifier be able to spot popular satirical images or protest flyers, etc. It does. It opens the box. You're waving a flag that our system can be controlled by governments, and we in this room, more than perhaps than anywhere else I know of, has been sounding the alarm that India's forcing tech companies to comply with technical flaming loopholes that it turns out they resist initially, but in the end comply with, and that's setting a precedence that every other government's watching, including America, certainly the big powerful countries. And now we're seeing what appears to be, this is why I'm harping on the issue, who's pushing Apple to do this. Are they internally deciding this? I highly doubt it, because their whole mantra, their whole company operatus mundi, their whole entire proposition is privacy. They're betting the company on privacy. This is their key marketing PR issue above all else. So much so that they even have a design of their own company logo with a padlock above the Apple, as if the Apple icon is a padlock, and there's a loop lock, like what's called a shackle. You guys know what I'm saying? That this is so fundamental to who Apple is, that it's privacy, 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 privacy. We are the privacy company. All the other companies, Android is not private. We're the privacy company. In the light of Pegasus now, and in the light of this, that's done. That's over. And so were they so willing to self-inflict this wound on themselves of jeopardizing their number one PR unique proposition of privacy? I don't think so. I think this is, again, the U.S. is initiating this. So I can't imagine.
Oh, the other question, no, that's exact. So the other question that would be in my head right now, it's like, so who can put pressure on Apple, right? Who can? Okay, U.S. government.
Right.
Who else?
Who else? Yeah, China has.
Chinese
right.
government?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But in this case, if it was Apple's own choice to do this, if this was self-inflicted wound and they're getting this blowback, Apple would likely say, okay, well, this is only self-inflicted. Of course, we could undo this damage. But when it's not self-inflicted, when it's the government pushing on you, you can't retract. You don't have a choice. And that's why they're not backing down. Apple is known for backing down. In fact, they had a signature collection internally a month ago over the hiring of Antonio Garcia, because of, some team members felt they wouldn't feel safe working alongside him, even though they probably weren't even in his own department. Twice in the last 2 months, Apple has backed down when there were signature collections amongst their team members. And now there's 5,500 security experts and Snowden and the EFF all screaming and shouting, Apple, what are you doing? This is crazy. This is a sort of corporate suicide. Stop, please stop. And they're saying, nah, go ahead with it. What?
Do you think the employees are going to do that this time? I think that, that's kind of the other theme is employees are more empowered than they've ever been, at least in recent history, right? Yeah. And employee activism is actually causing every problem we've talked about in the show whenever a big tech bumps up against the government, right? And I'll shut up.
Okay, so on this point, the EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, insists that it's already seen this mission creep in action, where they say, quote, one of the technologies originally built to scan and hash child sexual abuse imagery has been repurposed to create a database of quote-unquote terrorist content that companies can contribute to and access for the purpose of banning such content. The database, managed by the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, GIFCT, is troublingly without external oversight despite calls from civil society. Fundamental design flaws in Apple's approach have also been pointed out by experts who have claimed that Apple can trivially use different media fingerprinting databases for each user. For one user, it could be child abuse. For another, it could be a much broader category, thereby enabling selective content tracking for users. That's a really interesting point that the EFF brings up, which is that's what they do. They know what every company's doing when it comes to privacy. They are the independent, call it as they see it, geeks, lawyers who do that, try to let everyone know what's really going on behind the scenes. That's a great example of this Global Internet Forum of counterterrorism, which I didn't know about myself, where they say this similar database of fingerprinting of images that they're searching for is already being used by another agency. So to be continued, no doubt. That story's got plenty of gas left in that tank, and we'll read up on it. And one of the other fringe side dramas is, of course, Facebook's WhatsApp boss is saying that they will never do this. So WhatsApp says Apple's approach to this is a setback to user privacy, will be more fraught outside the US. WhatsApp flagged 400,000 cases to NCMEC. I don't know what that is in 2020. So anyway, the next biggest story at this very moment is from the Washington Post, which says how the cryptocurrency industry gained influence in Washington and became one of the biggest stumbling blocks holding up the passage of the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill is in part stalled as negotiations proceed on how closely to regulate the crypto industry. This is what an amazing thought that is. That it's the crypto provision, which is one page out of a 2,000-page infrastructure, multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill to redo America's roads and bridges and internet infrastructure. And what's holding, what has it, held up is this provision around how to police cryptocurrencies in the U.S. and the wording of that. And the wording set in the bill, it's the amendments essentially that are holding it up.
They actually they haven't even gotten to those amendments yet. The reason why they haven't even passed anything and they're still dilly-dallying is there's one senator from Tennessee who's making them go through every single procedure, okay, to delay, Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, and it's like, so they've been voting on all sorts of procedural stuff, all day today, having nothing to do with crypto.
Yes, and Reuters headline is $1 trillion U.S. infrastructure bill inches ahead with Senate votes, where they did sort of the preliminary vote where it looks like it'll pass. Again, this is one of those stories that is just, we haven't even hit the peak of it yet.
It was supposed to pass. It was supposed to pass Saturday. Maybe they'll vote on it Tuesday. But I wanted to point out, because this isn't really being spoken about a lot. Certainly not in these types of rooms. Even if this thing passes, regardless of what crypto provisions in there, not in there, because the House Democrats are insisting on a larger bill, a secondary bill that they're going to try to get. They want the Senate to pass through a process called reconciliation, where they don't need any Republican votes. They can do it with 50 votes plus the vice president. But some of the Democrats won't go along with that in the Senate. Nancy Pelosi is saying she's not going to bring this infrastructure bill that we're all talking about, no matter what's in it. She will not bring it to a vote in the House unless the Senate also sends over the second bill, okay, which is a much larger spending bill that is a little bit even more controversial. So there's a chance that nothing happens. Even like AOC is, and she's not wrong. She says the Democrats have only like a 3 or 5 vote majority in the House. And if they piss off the progressives, she and her friends will not vote for either bill. So nothing may end up happening at all.
So Jack Dorsey tweets about this, that forcing reporting rules on Americans who develop software and hardware, who mine and secure the network, or who run nodes to build resilience and efficiencies is an impossible ask that will only drive development and operation of this critical technology outside the U.S. And then Tyler Winklevoss, one of the Winklevoss twins who, sued Facebook and won. They got a settlement at least anyway. Then have been huge in the crypto space since then. And he says on Twitter, the crypto voting block is real. We are no longer a fringe community of technologists, but a rapidly growing industry of millions of people that is fast becoming a major growth engine of the U.S. economy and will be for decades to come. Mike Arrington, who was the founder of the TechCrunch blog, jumps on Twitter to say, I love how senators just have to say, let's fuck this random stuff up. And then all the people in that industry pour money into their coffers to convince them not to. It's a direct analogy to nice story you have here. Would be a shame if something bad were to happen to it, implying that the government's a mafia trying to shake down the crypto industry to become campaign contributors, essentially.
So Tyler, this is Vinay. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Crypto Council for Innovation in the U.S. It's the crypto lobbying group, which has Coinbase, Fidelity, and a few others. Their funding is just going through the roof right now. So which means they're also going to be lobbying all of these folks. So this is
Yeah, and
going to get
and in
interesting.
fairness, Andreessen Horowitz is likely the largest VC investor in the crypto space of all the main VCs, and they came out and said, told the senators, you got to think this through carefully. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Very nice political terms. Not very threatening, but definitely encouraging more consideration of the impacts of this tremendous issue. So, the next biggest story at this very moment is from NBC News. It says call center operator called Teleperformance, which counts Apple and Amazon and Uber as clients. Well, those are two of the world's biggest companies right there, Apple and Amazon. Wants to monitor staff working from home in Colombia via AI-powered cams, which leads to the headline: Big tech call center workers face pressure to accept home surveillance in their homes. Your company's, your bosses, the company you work for wants to put cameras inside your own private home to monitor you because you're working from home as an employee. Workers at one of the world's largest call center companies said additional monitoring would violate the privacy of their families in their homes. And so the workers are saying this is an invasion of privacy because I'm working in my home. The company says, yeah, but you're an employee and you're working for us from your home and we need to see you working. So Columbia call-based center workers who provide outsourced customer service to some of the nation's largest companies are being pressured to sign a contract that lets their employer install cameras in their homes to monitor work performance, an NBC News investigation has found. 6 workers based in Colombia for Teleperformance, one of the world's largest call center companies, which counts Apple, Amazon, and Uber amongst its clients, said that they are concerned about the new contract first issued in March. The contract allows monitoring by AI-powered cameras in workers' homes, voice analytics, and storage of data collected from the workers' family members, including minors. Because it needs to analyze the data of your home connection, your internet connection. You're not the only one using that connection, hence the problem that your kids are also using it, etc. So, it says Teleperformance employs more than 380,000 workers globally, including 39,000 in Colombia. The contract allows constant monitoring of what we're doing, but also our family, said Bogota-based worker on the Apple account who was not authorized to speak to the news media. I think it's really bad. I don't work in an office. I work in my bedroom. I don't want to have a camera in my bedroom. The worker said she signed the contract, a copy of which NBC News has reviewed, because she feared losing her job if she didn't sign it, understandably. She said that she was told by her supervisor that she would be moved off the Apple account if she refused to sign the document. She said the additional surveillance technology has not yet been installed. The concerns of the workers, who all spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the media, highlight a pandemic-related trend that has alarmed privacy and labor experts as many workers have shifted to performing their duties at home. Some companies are pushing for increasing levels of digital monitoring of their staff in an effort to recreate the oversight of the office at home. Thoughts from the stage?
Tyler,
Yes?
could I ask a stupid question? Is this just specific? You said they had 390,000 employees worldwide, yeah, and they have, or about 39,000 are in Colombia. Yeah. So what's the reasoning behind that? Did all of the offices, is this a global wide thing that they want to do, or is it just targeting LATAM?
It's not clear. Well, I don't think it.
Well,
they might be starting with Colombia because it's where they thought they could test it without the news finding out, and then once everyone signed on, then they would do it in more visible countries, so to speak.
I think there's something really eerily odd and really off about that, because I do agree with what the woman is saying. I mean, like, this is your private life. This is your home. You know, I mean, if that is the case, then start paying rent for those people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to turning it into like a Big Brother watching situation, I mean, at what point do we draw the line? I mean, that's, I hope some privacy lawyers and stuff get on top of this and make them amend this, because I just think it's a breach of their human rights and their right to privacy in their own home.
It's sticky.
I mean, it doesn't matter if they work naked. It doesn't matter if they work. What if they work naked? I mean, really, what if they enjoy working naked? They're not going to be seen per se, but I'm just saying, what if they have a really messy house? What if they live 10 people in one home, and there's only one small corner where that worker's working? Because that's Colombia. That could be the case where in Medellin or something like that, it's a small apartment and they live with big families in a small apartment and they're on top of each other. Oh, that's embarrassing to have someone see that. Why would someone even want to allow that? So, it's really heart-wrenching to even think that this could be something that people would want, and it would be even more heart-wrenching and hurtful if it actually goes through.
Well, I think
Actually, there's a very simple solution to this. Colombia just needs to do a data sovereignty that says, sure, you can put a camera, but you can't take any of the data out of the country. You can't take the streaming video out of the country. Done. Boom.
but I think this is a
but that's not
subcontract
very
to
empathic.
Colombia.
That's not very
I know,
empathic.
I know, but they can't do that
I
in
understand where
countries
you're
where
coming from.
they
I
can't
do
do
get
that
your
in
point of view.
countries where they can't take data out. It's as simple as that.
Correct, but then you have the empathic, compassionate standpoint, and as a woman, she's got family, I mean,
So check
there
this
has
out.
to be a level of
the
trust,
drama
right?
continues. Some teleperformance workers have become so concerned about the pressure to agree to sweeping surveillance that they have started to organize to improve their working conditions. Anyone
Well, there goes Tyler, what I was just saying. I mean, I'm Hispanic. I know that in the Latin community, I have friends in Medellin. These are not big apartments. They're suffering a lot with the situation.
The bigger point is they're unionizing over this. And so if the company continues to force this and they're telling people, you're going to lose, you're not going to be able to work, they are all going to collectively join together and be like, okay, we have to unionize right now very expeditiously to counter the threat that they could fire us independently. They're going to split us up between the ones who are willing to and not willing to. We need to all stand together and say, no, we're all or nothing. You fire all 39,000 of us or none. And that's where they're going to be able to leverage their strength, because I doubt very few of them are in favor of doing it. Yeah, Emma?
Tyler, and I think Ken wanted to say, so I'll just say one last thing. To your point about that unionization, they're also messing with the wrong country, because the one thing that the Latinos in LATAM has is no matter what we have in our differences, when something goes down that's like this, we will rally together and support each other. And that's where they're underestimating the power of community and collectiveness that the Latinos have. They're really underestimating it, because that 39,000 could very well do that. And that's where they will underestimate their power.
I just want to. I think in that article, Apple said this whole thing violates their policies. Apple's basically disassociating himself from this,
of course,
saying this. Yeah, right. That this was this company doing it on their own, which it might be, because that company has their own P&L. So who knows?
Doesn't sound like it if they're saying we'll move you off of Apple if you don't sign the contract. You'll keep your job. We'll keep you on.
Leverage. But they're trying to do that. I mean, as kind of leverage to get them to do it. But you know what I'm saying? I think it has to do with their own.
I see Ken's point. Ken, are you talking about like that they're a middleman between Apple, they're a representation of a bunch of workers? Yes. And they're trying to get better deals on their contracts, so they're trying to make it more attractive.
Yeah, but
or they're trying to get rid of people.
This is why I'm not picking on Apple, but this is why big companies outsource out jobs that they don't want to be themselves directly associated with, like this. Like Apple could employ all of those call center people directly. And normally Apple is such loves to have so much control of user experience. They're notorious for it, right? That they want to control and have, I mean, the Apple is legendary for this. That they're only able to do what they do because they're vertically integrated. They control every aspect of the whole user experience that they normally, under normal circumstances, would even employ the call center folks, etc. But in this case, they understand how sticky that is. They understand that starts getting into low wage, controlling, all of this. They want the degree of separation. They're more than happy to delegate that stuff out. Let some other company have it where they have plausible deniability that there's, we don't know what that company's asking their team members to do.
Tyler, it's Chetna here. For me, it makes no sense.
I'm not picking on Apple specifically, but this is just a tactic that every big company does when they have to get into
Oh
dirty.
yes,
Go
yes,
ahead,
yeah.
Jenna.
No, I'm talking about the actual
Yeah,
surveillance
yeah,
piece,
yeah.
and it makes no sense because they could easily record them, and you have so many different metrics in place now to measure customer service staff and call center staff that I don't even know why you would want to video your staff. You can get
You
client feedback.
you got a
You
great
have
point.
call
The
measurements.
point is they're already doing it without their approval. The whole point of the contract is to make it that they're agreeing to it, because you're right.
Yeah.
Technically, it's a piece of cake to do it. Turn on their cameras, watch
If
them.
you really want to just monitor performance,
Yes,
somebody's performance, there's so many other ways that companies are doing it already right now. Why would you need the video surveillance on your employees that are on the phone? It makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't even know what they would be
I
achieving
might be more
from
the
that.
audio, because they want to be able to hear everything you're saying during your customer service calls. They need the audio. I don't think they really do need the video.
Yeah, that's
Actually, you give
strange.
bad PR to the principal companies like Apple, Amazon, etc., and those guys will go back and say, "Stop this" to the call center. Same thing that happened with Foxconn, which was accused of child labor and underpaid workers, and Apple stepped in, right? So give bad PR to the principal companies, and this company will have to stop this rubbish.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's just a really interesting thought. And the next big one is from Reuters. China sues Tencent, claiming that WeChat's youth mode does not comply with the country's laws protecting minors. Beijing prosecutors initiated a civil public interest lawsuit against Tencent subsidiary WeChat on Friday, saying the youth mode of the company's popular social app does not comply with the country's laws protecting minors. I guess we need to crack that open to see what is the nitty gritty of what exactly were they doing, but it's paywalled. So even better that we get in David Chang if possible. Cheryl, could you try and ping in David and see?
Okay, I'll
No,
do that.
thank you. I imagine he knows intimately what's going on in this case. I want to see. Yeah, there's lots of people covering this article, like Engadget and The Verge and AP and Bloomberg and others. So let's see what they have to say. It says WeChat may be a staple of Chinese digital life, but it isn't stopping the country's government from clamping down on the messaging giant's behavior. Reuters reports that Beijing prosecutors have sued Tencent over youth mode. Youth mode prevents younger users from accessing payments, finding nearby friends, and playing certain games. Is effectively parental control. Tencent hasn't commented on the lawsuit. It recently set stricter limits for young Honor of King players, capping playtime to just an hour a day. The suit might be part of a broader crackdown. China's state media blasted the game industry and online performance. The country has also focused much of its recent attention on so they don't really seem to know. And Engadget has read the article, so it's a big we don't know at the moment on this issue. So we'll wait because that drama is still got plenty of gas left in that tank. Next biggest story is despite claims of diversity inclusion, Asian Americans in Silicon Valley still face racism and are least likely to break into leadership positions, is the headline from Bloomberg. It's paywalled, and they're the only ones covering it. And my friend Ken Young was the one who kind of popularized he's the one that kind of made it viral. He himself is Asian American in Silicon Valley. What? Well, I maybe they're not counting Indian in this. Is like both Google and Microsoft have raised their former. I mean, both Sundar Pichai and Natella both have been at the company, and now they've become CEOs of Google and Microsoft, two of the top big five tech companies. So maybe they mean non-Indian Asians, or they're not. I don't know. So anyway, next, yes.
Tyler. So this topic actually comes up quite frequently in the Asian
Mm-hmm.
professionals and other Asian rooms with professionals that are outside of that
Uh-huh.
club. And my sense is that it's by ratio and proportion, particularly in the tech spaces. So yes, there are a couple of highly visible, people in the US with tech companies. It's almost like saying, well, Oprah is successful, so
Yeah.
all African American,
Yeah.
so I think that I don't know the statistics offhand. It might be less than 2% are in the C-suite overall. But I think it's more kind of global in scope. Well, not necessarily geographically global, but in the sense of, yeah, you might have one or two highly visible people, but when you look at the actual statistics of people in the C-suite and people who are performing the technical jobs, there is a mismatch, and I think people refer to it as the bamboo ceiling.
Yep. The next big one from Wall Street Journal, an analysis of receipts from 1 million consumers shows that the average Uber and Lyft fares in the US were higher in July 2022, that's last month, compared to January 2020, pre-COVID. The question is, how much higher? I know the answer. That gives us a fantastic opportunity to play our favorite new game, Tech News Jeopardy. How much higher are Uber and Lyft rates according to 1 million consumer receipts last month compared to pre-COVID?
30%.
50%.
50%. 50%. I
I'm
want to
with
win
Cal.
this.
I'm going to say 51%.
52.
54.
I'm with
I want
Amy.
anything
I'm
above
with
the
Amy
50.
on that.
I want anything above the, okay, 55. I'm just playing that game. Anything above, I win, right?
$1, Bob. $1, Bob.
Let's make a deal.
Let's make a deal. All the Americans are making American game show jokes. $1, Bob. So the answer is a tie between Ame and Cal. It is 50%. So well done.
Yes. I got two
Woo!
now. I'm going.
Tyler,
Bye.
we got to hear about your Price is Right experience. I was such a jerk stepping
Okay.
over you
No,
about
not a
mine.
problem. Chris and I have both been on America's most loved game show of all time called The Price is Right. And it's been America's best game show since game shows were invented back in the 60s. And I got called down to contestants row because when I was in line out in the parking lot, which Chris knows, when you're at CBS TV City in Hollywood, you have to wait in the parking lot in the morning, starting at like 6, 7 in the morning, and then you meet the producers and he asks you very quickly, why should we pick you to be on the show? And in my case, it was my birthday. I went there with all of my friends on my birthday. And I know if you watch the show regularly, they let people come down to contestants row if it's their birthday and they have their friends in the audience. So I strategically let all my friends go before me to talk to the producer while you're waiting in line. And they said, well, we're all here for Tyler's birthday. We're all here for Tyler's birthday. I had like 10 of them in a row all say that. Then it came to me. And then the person after me, next in line, I had become friends with, sitting in the parking lot for 5 hours that morning. And he clearly has Asperger's or some kind of neurological issue, but he's a savant. He's like he's identical to Rain Man. If you've seen the show Rain Man, the movie with Tom Cruise and who's the other guy in Rain Man? Dustin Hoffman. Right. So he is identical to Dustin Hoffman. He's a savant. He knows everything that has ever happened on the show, and he watches that show religiously, like it's a UFO landing on the White House lawn.
Oh, those shoes are $4.99.
Yes, exactly. He no more. By the way, the items on The Price is Right that they ask you to bid, you have to know the prices of everything, like the bag of Planters peanuts, or this, a kitchenette set, or this car, or this. He has memorized all the prices, all of them. He knows by memory all 1,000 prices of all 1,000 objects that the show has ever shown, because he's Rain Man. He has memorized all the prices, and we were testing this in the parking lot. He has them all memorized. So when it comes to me, all my friends are saying, we're here for Tyler's birthday, please pick him to go down, to be on the show. 10 in a row. Then it comes to me, and the producer says, happy birthday, Tyler, because he sees my name tag on my shirt. He says, oh, you're Tyler, happy birthday. I said, thanks. He's also, why should we let you on the show? I said, well, you know what? That would be nice if that happens, because it's my birthday. But I'll tell you what, as my birthday present, if I could ask one thing for my birthday, I want the guy that comes after me in line that you're going to meet in about 30 seconds to go down on the show. And the producer says, wow, okay, we've never had that happen before. Normally when people come from their birthday with all their friends, they want to be on the show. I said, yeah, I get that. That would be nice. But if it's up to me, and if I have to choose between me and the guy you're going to meet after me, please pick the guy after me. Because that would be Price is Right history. Like, I can't really explain, but trust me. So then the guy comes after me, talk, and then we go into the show, we sit down, he calls, and then it's towards the, where the Price is Right is going. And Tyler Crowley, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Do, do, do. And then the music and the lights, and I come down and I'm talking. And we bid on.
Are you jumping up and down though? Because you have a lot of high energy.
Yeah, you got to
right?
have a lot of energy.
So were you jumping
Yeah.
up and down?
So I jump down. I'm jumping up and down like I'm on meth. I'm all excited, and we have to bid on some ironing board or something. And then they call, next is the guy, Rain Man. They called us both down. And then we're hugging in the front row. There's only 4 contestants. And, we're freaking out and jumping up and down. And I just thought that was very sweet of them to put us both
cool.
up there. Yeah. Anyway, that's my little story. The Price is Right. So,
but Tyler, did he win? Did he win those? Was he good when he was up there?
It was the very last bit of the whole show. If you're the first to come down at the beginning of the show, you're going to get on stage. You have 12 chances to get on stage. If you're the last person called, you've got 1 chance to get on stage. He did. He got up on stage, but when you play a game of chance, and you win any bids to win, so unfortunately he wasn't good at the games that were they're physical, some of them, like the spinning the wheel and the Plinko and whatever. So there's luck involved, and unfortunately he wasn't.
Oh my God, Plinko!
Yeah.
Oh my God, Plinko!
What year was that, Tyler? We got to find that footage.
Oh God, what year was that?
We need to find the footage for sure.
And it was your birthday on this day?
that day, that morning, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So when's your birthday, Tyler?
Huh?
Did you still have the mullet?
Yeah, did I have a mullet or did he? What? No, I didn't. No, I didn't have a mullet at that time. No.
High school photo that Cheryl has.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you can DM me. I'll go and
All right.
it.
Next.
He's gonna go find a headline now to move past this discussion. Right. I just know him so well.
Right. Cal, we've
I gotta go.
All right, guys.
But you must go back to your family.
Yeah,
bye.
Have a wonderful
Come back next week, Cal. We'll give you updated.
Always
bye, Cal.
come back anytime, okay? I got a timestamp already.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you did me. You got me. Bye.
Next big headline.
Can I stick one in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go. Let me do this one, and then you can go, Dan. The next big one right now is a look at Metaphysic. Is the name of the company. This is from CNN. A company which uses deep fake tech to create ads. I told you. Did I tell you this was coming? Deep fake ads. We talked about it here. To create deep fake tech to create ads and restore old film. Its founder went viral on TikTok for deep faking Tom Cruise. And earlier this year, videos of Tom Cruise started popping up on TikTok of the actor doing some surprisingly un-Tom Cruise-like stuff. And you all saw those videos. And this is a deep dive on that guy who's in those videos who made himself look like Tom Cruise and how he's turning it into a advertising company. And you can read all about it. So I'm going to tweet that out. Go ahead, Dan.
So the big news coming for this week is starting in about 40 minutes from now. The new IPCC report that's been a really long time in the making. And they have different kinds of reports. This is the climate science report, and it hasn't been, I think, since 2013 or something. Really long time. Anyway, it's coming out, and we're actually going to do a special room on it at 1 a.m., which my time, which is kind of weird, on Climate Chat Club, talking about it, and that's when it gets released. It's going to be much more very direct compared to previous reports that kind of waffled about what might happen, this, that, and the other thing. It's going to be extremely direct about the need to very, very rapidly decrease emissions, or what's going to happen if you don't do that. So it should be very interesting. It's going to certainly hog the news cycle for the next several days. And I tweeted out about this. The one way to think about this is, all these stories about people who refuse the vaccine and then they or their husband or something gets COVID and they feel really awful. Well, we're all going to feel that way if we don't, quickly reduce our emissions. We're all going to be in that kind of situation. Anyway, so it's starting in 40 minutes from now. It's going to be released.
That's unfortunate. None of us can join that.
We're getting ready for that by kind of reviewing things, and it should be very interesting.
We'll all be in here doing tech news, so that's unfortunate. So CB Insights, the global corporate venture capital-backed fundraising, has reached $79 billion across 2,099 deals in the first half of 2021, up from $74 billion for all of 2020. So what that means is in the first half of this year, we've already passed the record-breaking year of 2020, and it's only in the first 6 months. We're doubling last year. This is going to be a double record-breaking year for fundraising for tech. With everything going up, it says Google Ventures had the most deals with 64. With everything going up to the right, it's only fitting that corporate venture capital investments did 2 during the past quarter, then when they should say the first half, because the data is about the first half. $79 billion already. That means we're on track to do $160 billion. That's just that's bizarre. That growth chart looks ridiculous. Ken?
Oh,
You had your mic open. I didn't know if you wanted to jump in there. That's right. Next big headline: as Cuba's government tightens its controls on internet access, attempts from the U.S. government to bolster connectivity to the island seems unlikely to succeed. And indeed, the Biden administration was scheming ways to get internet to Cuba with balloons or planes or who knows what. And this is where Starlink is going to be really interesting, because this could be a case where Starlink is likely to operate. And let's see if the government's able to stop it or not, because the U.S. government actually has an interest in it working there. So if you have one country wanting it to work there and the local country doesn't, but the local country is not very well equipped to stop it, this is going to be a really interesting use case. So Cuba, Starlink is going to be, keep an eye out on that one. The next big article is some interesting fundraisings happening. Clear Lake Capital to acquire and take private Cornerstone On Demand. Toronto-based Smile CDR, which offers software for health clinical data interoperability, raises $20 million. Retain.ai, a service that gives enterprise a view of customer engagement across teams, raises $23 million. Siemens in Germany says that it has agreed to buy Netherlands-based Squills, a cloud-based software suite for rail transport operators. Experts say $65 billion broadband bill Congress is finalizing has good aspects, but won't fix the high price and result from broadband. Okay, Red Monk. I look at Singapore's efforts to become a leading hub for esports. We covered that. Okay, we're done with the boring headlines that your cousins and coworkers are reading, and now we get to go into the really interesting ones that people are finding all over the interwebs. And the first one out of the gate is this one from South China Morning Sea, from Poppy, which says South China Morning Post, rather, is in China. Based out of Hong Kong, essentially, but they are their headline today is that China tests tens of millions as second wave of virus hits 17 provinces. Rescue underway in Eastern Archipelago after social media cry for help from a sailor reporting 13 crewmates ill but refused permission to dock. And now it's Delta spreading in China, now up to 17 provinces. It's let's see what they can do with Sinovac. Rescue underway. Yeah, we covered the boat. China reported another 94 locally transmitted COVID-19 cases as the country continues to fight the most serious outbreak since last year's peak in Wuhan, testing tens of millions of people across the country. Of the new infections, 41 were in Henan, and the central province hit hard by floods last month after record-breaking rainfall. Another 38 in the eastern province of Jiangsu, where Nanjing, the site of first cases in the outbreak, were detected. And the outbreak has spread to 17 provinces after the highly transmissible Delta variant was detected among airport staff in Nanjing on July 20th. So this all started July 20th at the airport from a Russian flight, where the cleaning crew of that flight were the first to be infected domestically, and it's now spread to 17 provinces since July 20. So in 20 days, it's gone to 17 provinces and growing almost virally. It's almost growing like a virus over there, this COVID thing. It's going viral.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
Tyler, I should mention in Austin, Texas, which is a very big tech hub, as you know, there's only 6 ICU beds left right now. There were 16 a week ago, and there's only 6 left as of yesterday.
Yeah, I read that headline a couple hours ago. Austin, population of 2.9 million. And by the way, in that article, Ken, you can confirm if you have it open in front of you,
I don't have it.
Houston, which is one of the world's biggest cities in America, I think third or fourth biggest city in America, only has very few beds left. Dallas, also one of America's biggest cities. If you factor in Dallas and its neighboring city as a metropolitan area, it's one of the largest in the U.S.
Fort Worth.
Yeah, Fort Worth, Dallas combined, it's one big metropolitan area, one of the biggest in the U.S. And they are also essentially out of beds. They, even in Austin, Texas, are using the manual audio air horn system used for like bombings during World War II, where they all warn the citizens with this mechanical air horn system, that to be on high alert that COVID is of such seriousness. They're up to 20,000 cases. Some huge percentage of the cases in America are in Texas and Florida at the moment. I think 40% of all cases reported yesterday were in Florida and Texas. Chris?
I had a brain fart as you were talking. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Tyler, just to go back to Henan province. So I done some work with the university there a few years back, and they're really, really big in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to call that out because, implications on at least the food supply chain within China, given phase of COVID with the Delta variant.
Okay. So the next headline is from the Telegraph. Google's Wing, which is their drone delivery system, keeps its drone dreams aloft, is the headline. The drone delivery company was launched as part of Alphabet's X division, its so-called Moonshot Factory. They call it Google Wing. It's doing deliveries. I've seen documentaries of it in Australia where they're delivering coffee to people who love ordering coffee from the convenience of their house, and they just one-click delivery of several businesses in the area. They're also now in Finland, and they seem to be doing well. So why does this headline come out today? Why is Google this headline, Google's Wing keeps its drone dreams aloft? Why is that coming out today? I'll tell you why that's coming out today, because it was reported that Amazon's drone delivery team in the UK seems to be shutting down, with 100 people having left, and it's being mismanaged. And they didn't say it's shutting down. They're saying that it's kind of imploding and people are leaving, like 100 people have left. So no doubt Google saw that headline. And I guess Google contacted the Telegraph to say, hey, we're not winding down. If you're leaving the Amazon drone team, you might want to join the Google drone team. We're not winding down. The headline is, Google's Wing team is not dying. That's literally the headline. Google Wings keeps its drone dreams aloft. Well, who asked? Who asked you? Who cares about that? Why is that of news? That's not a news headline. What's the news there? What are you revealing? We're not dying. That's the news? That's the headline? Our team's not dying? That's what it says. Here's the headline. Let me read you this quote-unquote breaking news headline. Google division keeps its dreams aloft, meaning it's not dying. How the fuck is that news? There's a lot of companies not dying today. Why? By the way, Amazon Web Services not dying. Apple's iPad team not dying. The iPhone team not dying. And the AirPods team also not dying. None of these are news. Neither is Google's drone delivery not dying. That's not news. So why are you reporting this? You're reporting it because Google's doing a PR piece to announce that they want to acquire, if you're leaving the Amazon team. Oh, and by the way, if you think this is a conspiracy theory, take note of this interesting coincidence. The company, the journal, the publication that's publishing this is the Telegraph UK. Guess who was the source of the Amazon team winding down? The UK. So this headline's being promoted in the UK, just where Amazon warehouse of drone team is disintegrating? Is that? Oh, what an interesting coincidence. What a neat coincidence. Wow. So the single publisher who decides to run this headline that Google's drone team isn't dying, happens to be geographically in the same place where the Amazon team is dying. Wow, what an interesting coincidence. I wonder how that happened. How the sausage is made, everybody, and why is the Telegraph? Hey, Telegraph journalist, whoever wrote this,
I think
why?
they're doing public service to make sure those people still have a job.
Sure, yeah, but why is the Telegraph doing this on behalf of Google? I wonder if relationships are involved. Maybe, perhaps, doing a little favor between the head of the PR team at Google and the journalist at the Telegraph. Maybe do us a little favor. Maybe let them know, we're not dying. Funny.
Or they're getting a recruitment referral.
Yeah, exactly. Telegraph's getting into the headhunter thing. I imagine at the bottom of the article it says, if you're interested in joining the team, just contact our editor. So next headline is from Bloomberg. China's economic risks build as Delta cases spread and prices gain. The PPI climbed again in July after a slight slowdown in June. Goldman cuts GDP growth forecasts on virus restrictions. China's economic risks are building in the second half of the year, with the growth set to slow while inflation pressures are picking up, clouding the outlook for central bank support. And now they're going to deal with Delta just like Thailand did, and we're all going to see how it does so far. It's in 17 provinces. That makes it a little tricky to control when it's getting that far out of hand. But let's see if they can do it. Amazon's back in the news today. The headline is from Mahogany that Amazon same-day delivery expands to 6 more U.S. cities. That's the headline. Amazon super speedy delivery now covers a dozen cities, which may thrill shoppers and innovators, but leaves workers bracing themselves. Well, they're industrial athletes after all. So the question is, where are the 6 cities that now get same-day delivery? The total now comes to a dozen U.S. cities where Prime members can order up to 3 million items on demand. The company launched faster delivery in... Anyone want to guess the city? First one gets a point in Tech News Jeopardy. No one's even taking a chance. Okay, so it's...
New York.
Huh?
New York.
No, New York already had it.
Washington?
Yeah. Oh my God. Messi joins. Is that 4 for you now, Messi?
4.
Wow. Wow.
I'm just
She's not messing
She's not
around.
messing around. The score is 4-2-1-1-1-1-1 with Messi in the lead with 4, Cal with 2, everyone else with 1, as I can recall. So the company launched faster delivery in Philadelphia, Phoenix, Orlando, Dallas, and then followed up by extending to Nashville and Washington, D.C. in November. Oh, no. Now with the latest move, impulse shoppers in Baltimore. So Washington already had it. Sorry, Messi. I screwed up reading the article. Now in the latest move, impulse shoppers in Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, Tampa, and Charlotte, North Carolina, and Houston can join the previously Philly, Phoenix, Orlando, Dallas, Nashville, Washington. And I thought New York already had it. Since launching same-day delivery, we're continuing to bring customers new levels of convenience and more delivery options to choose from, Amazon said in a blog post published Wednesday. Our move to make same-day delivery even faster is just one example of delivery innovation that gives customers more choice, speed, and convenience when receiving their packages. And clearly, the company has been planning to broaden same-day delivery for some time, as no operation could spin up an undertaking of this magnitude overnight. Indeed, the offering was made possible through company investments in scores of regional mini fulfillment centers, on the outside of each of these cities. There it is. It's pretty obvious how this is all going to unfold. And it's not going to be just the stuff you order. And by the way, keep note, and somebody should watch the data on these 6 new cities that were added. What happens to retail and little mom and pop shops in a city when Amazon offers same-day delivery, or heaven forbid, 1-hour delivery in your city? That's faster than you going out, getting in, lacing up your shoes, getting in the car, driving around and buying it and driving home. You can just have it sent. So what happens to all those small shops? And the same as people become habitual into using that, they start wanting to do the same with food. And when they start doing the same with food, what happens to the restaurants? The restaurants have to do the same and become cloud kitchens on the outside of town in a big warehouse and pay much cheaper space and do 20 different, have a huge menu of, 1,000 items, even though they pretend that they're 10 different restaurants so that you don't get freaked out by ordering, sushi from a Mexican restaurant. It's the same kitchen, but they pretend like they're separate restaurants in this warehouse on the outside of town. It's a cloud kitchen. So, yeah, this is the evolution. There isn't.
I want 20-second delivery with artillery delivered burritos. That's the future.
Like the T-shirt cannon at the rock concert. Incoming burritos. That would be a great Saturday Night Live skit, by the way.
Just put some mortars outside the cloud kitchen. It'll be great.
Burrito bombs. Bomber burritos.
Yep.
Even better, Chris, is if we go intercontinental, go ballistic, we can use accretional heating
ballistic
to heat up
burritos
burrito on the way down.
That's the name of the company. Who wants in?
It would actually work pretty well if you've only got like a 1 kilogram payload. I mean, ICBMs, I could see it being, start off as a weapon of war. Now it's deliver flavored. Just all the tastiness. The future is bright.
Nuclear coffee. Just send that thing over in a
atomically warmed by the upper atmosphere re-entry.
Okay. Thank you for that, Chris. So, Amazon's expanding to 6 new cities. The next headline is somebody named Saracen's owner, Nigel Ray, backs keyless car sharing startup. Car share spelled with a K. Karshare. I'm predicting a trademark infringement there by whoever has the trademark with the C, by the way. Car share with a K has raised £3 million for its peer-to-peer sharing service of cars. So now you can share cars in your neighborhood, just like people are sharing bikes all around European cities, bike sharing. What about car sharing? It's coming. The issue is, why not start sharing everything, like your basketball you rarely use in your garage, or your weed whacker that you bought.
Your spare pair of socks,
You can't wear all.
You laugh. It will be. If someone's going to do it, they're going to say Goodwill was the old way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know what sucks, Tyler?
Can't wear all those socks, Chris. Why not?
What sucks is people aren't even neighborly enough to where you just borrow your neighbors and never give it back.
What? That's an unmonetized opportunity right there. That essentially means that there's an opportunity to basically using unproductive assets and basically
utilization, Chris. The word you're looking for is optimized utilization.
There you go, utilization. I want to hear like this economist talking about like K curves and other crazy things happening now. It's the future. We're living it.
We're going to save the planet by sharing our dirty socks. So the next big headline is China's wandering elephants may finally be heading home. An elephant herd that fascinated locals and people around the world by making a year-long journey, raiding farms, and even a retirement home for food appears finally to be heading home. From the Washington Post. TikTok overtakes Facebook as the world's most downloaded app is the headline from Nikkei Japan. Data protection becoming more important as consumers demand policy. And the next headline is about the Afghanistan war. The Taliban has captured 3 regional capitals. This is getting serious, where the Taliban had taken over the countrysides, had not gone into the inner cities, and then stood outside the city gates asking for a meeting with the president, and which they didn't get a response. And they said, are we going to share this place or what? And they didn't get a response. So now they're taking over the minor capitals, and eventually they'll take those, and then they'll go into Kabul. And that's where the grand standoff will happen, because that's the capital of Afghanistan. But a separate headline is that the U.S. is using B-2 bombers now to take out Taliban when they do take over a city like Herat or Kunduz, as they have done. Now we can bomb those cities because you've taken them over. And now we can take you out in those cities where you're concentrated, and now you're susceptible to being bombed. And so if they go into those cities and they get bombed in those cities, will there be enough of them left to take over Kabul? Because that's really all that matters. If you run Kabul, you run the country. That's the capital. So stay tuned.
Those bombers are really
There's a related
expensive.
story, and I don't remember. You'll have to remind me whether we covered it in the health thing earlier, or I heard it somewhere else. But there's a concern. I think it's from the WHO or something, that if they get full control of Afghanistan, that we may get a polio outbreak because they won't let people into the country to go door to door to do vaccinations, and that polio, which has basically been eradicated, could reemerge.
Right.
Do we have the thing on vaccination where the CIA was using it for drawing like blood samples or genetic stuff? And that was one of the ways they've got Osama, and they're like, "Yay! Essentially, this is a thing." And then the vaccination people were going, "Gosh darn it, that was like some of the last ones. We were about to wipe out some of these diseases, but no one trusts us because they are now rightfully saying, oh shit, CIA sometimes embeds with this stuff." It was like one of those drawback things.
No.
You wouldn't have to send in Americans. I mean, this could be like they won't even allow international people in. It's not they
No,
won't let
that's
anybody.
us.
Okay. Next headline here. Vinay, you just sent in this one about Chinese drones from Politico.
They're cheap.
Yeah, so the infrastructure bill has a clause there that says no Chinese drones can be bought for any infrastructure projects in the US. It's been hidden away. So Chinese drones are out of the market in the US.
Okay. There it is. Pretty simple and sweet on that one. The next one is the UK launches a £4 million fund, which is about $5 million, to run fiber optic cables through water pipes. Project that could bring fiber broadband to remote areas while monitoring pipes for water leaks. Okay. Interesting. And then the next one from Mahogany via Wired, the headline reads, "The return to the office will only mean more Zooms." What? I thought we were returning to the office so we wouldn't have to Zoom. Au contraire. The return to the office will only mean more Zooms. Bosses are convinced that 3 days a week in the office will make us more collaborative. Data shows otherwise. According to Wired, the data shows we're more collaborative through Zooms, regardless of where we happen to be located. And so we're actually more productive at home on Zoom than we are in the office without Zoom. So even if we go to the office, we need to use Zoom to stay productive because it's far more convenient than standing up and going over to the meeting room and blah, blah, blah. So especially if, not everyone's in the office that day. And so it's a very long Wired article in Data, indeed, but it says that that the data is in favor of that remote work or hybrid work is more effective and meetings are more effective through Zoom. It's a big debate. You can read that article. The next one is that the Greece wildfires. This is from BBC, and the headline reads, quote unquote, "It's like a horror movie, but it's real life." Thousands of people have had to evacuate Greece's second largest island as severe wildfires rage on, now in like the ninth day or so. And I just retweeted that out. And on that note, there is a video that you really have to see that I'm going to retweet out right now. Let me see. Here we go. I'm retweeting it right now. So it's the most recent tweet on the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, where it shows the boat.
It is amazing.
Yeah, it's a boat full of these people that are forced evacuated out of their homes. And you can see the scale of these fires inside of this boat of, hundreds of people watching their city burn to the ground and all of their homes. You have to see this video to get an understanding of what's going on over there. It does look like something out of a horror movie. Absolutely. It's unimaginably tragic. Just looking at this short video, you go to TNATW on Twitter and just watch this video embedded in the tweet from We Don't Have Time. Holy cow, what a video. So the next headline is India's first indigenous aircraft carrier called Vikrant on Sunday successfully completed a 5-day maiden-sea voyage as the performance of the key systems of the 40,000-ton warship was found to be satisfactory, officials say. And that means it's headed to the South China Sea to join all of its friends from Germany, Australia, Japan, America, England, which are all simultaneously joining up in the South China Sea near Taiwan. I wonder what they're up to. India's aircraft carrier, built on the cost of around 23,000 crore, someone could do the math for us, set sail on Wednesday for the crucial sea trials ahead of its planned induction into the Indian Navy by August next year. And Vikrant successfully accomplished its maiden sea voyage, and is quite a big aircraft carrier indeed. So, next,
Hey,
yes,
Tyler, there's another regional news which may have got
what's that?
missed. So a few years ago, Duterte from Philippines had not signed the Visiting Forces Treaty for American forces because he was trying to tilt towards China, right? And I don't know if you guys noticed on July 30th or if you caught the news, he's signed the full treaty with the U.S. now. So U.S. troops can again be stationed in the Philippines. So he's pivoting back away from China.
Okay.
Big news.
Who was that?
Duterte, Philippines.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was it was. There's some countries that are it's undetermined. It's unclear which side they'll take in this growing friction between the U.S. and China. And most countries is quite clear. There's a bunch where it's not totally clear which way they would go, and it seems like Philippines is decided to be on kind of on the USA side of things, because from what I understand, and I didn't hear what you said there just now, Vinay, but from what I understand, it was driven by the fact that China had parked some military vessels off the coast of the Philippines, and that kind of, and they had asked them to move, and they didn't, and he realized, the future is not looking very fun with China in control of the South China Sea, because China's claiming all of the waters around, Southeast Asia, which is just totally absurd. The UN has said, "Are you out of your goddamn mind? That's just totally absurd on face value," and they're very adamant about it. And so all of the neighboring countries, which is Japan, Vietnam, Philippines, etc., are all unifying to tell China, yeah, your claims of the South China Sea are absurd. And
Maybe they should change the name.
yeah, changing the name might be a good first step. Yeah. So,
Yeah. But signing that treaty, allowing U.S. troops back on Philippine soil,
right,
is a big one because now he's actually saying, "Come on over, guys, we need you."
right.
Right?
Yeah. But it was basically because China was getting a little too aggressive. They're being very aggressive in the region, and the whole region knows it, and that's why the rest of the world is now sending their aircraft carriers over there to see if China really wants to tango. And I don't think they do. I think they're going to realize, you know what, you guys can have this ocean, and Taiwan. They're going to lose Taiwan out of this, basically, or their claims to it. And in the Olympics, it was Taiwan didn't have their own flag. Even when they won gold medals, they have to show the Olympic flag instead of their own flag and all of this. And so what happens when we go to the Beijing Games? Will the Taiwan even be able to participate? What's going to happen with Taiwan in the Beijing Games?
Maybe they will boycott.
No doubt Taiwan doesn't have a choice but to boycott. They, what? Yeah, it's going to be very weird indeed. Anyway, yes,
Tyler, isn't that interesting that China actually recognizes Afghanistan and the Taliban, but then they really ask other countries not to recognize Taiwan or other,
even worse,
it really is being hypocrite.
they're recognizing the Myanmar coup.
Yeah, exactly. So they
They're
lecture
the
us
they're
here
the
in
only
Ethiopia
country
as
they're the only
well.
country on the planet that recognizes the Myanmar coup as the quote unquote leadership of Myanmar, as they called it.
Yeah, they talk about how China's funding and financing of Africa is non-interference. We don't care what you do politically and this and that. And
Messi,
then,
are
they're
you trying to
marching
make the
door to door.
argument that China's being a little unfair here?
It's very hypocrite.
Is it? You
They
might want to
say all
talk with
these
the Dalai
things and
Lama,
then
because he left his home 70 years ago and has not returned since.
yeah, why they would say no country should recognize all these countries that China doesn't want being recognized, but then they go ahead and they recognize whoever they want. I think that's being a hypocrite and not being
Okay.
fair. You have to call it when it is, because here, on the ground, a lot of Africans would say, well, the West, they give us conditionality, but China is more fair in their financing. But then you look at it, what they do. So, I mean, fair is fair.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Well, you're there in Africa and in Ethiopia
Yeah.
where they built. I mean, Messi. Let's be fair. They built you the African Union headquarters there in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia for free,
And everyone can use it
for
for
absolutely
free.
for free. I mean,
Right.
what's the problem? I mean, are you objecting to the fact that they're using it with microphones and cameras and stealing all the data out of all the computers every night? Is that the problem?
That's my complaint.
Oh, well, it was free.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you know, it was
Right,
free.
right.
So, anyways,
Right.
the next headline is from Poppy, who's got a bit of a sense of humor. She found the article, and the headline is China's building the world's largest global DNA database. While many countries take DNA samples during crime investigations, China takes them from the public, including children at school. And I just tweeted that out, so you can read that one. Big Tech, Florian just sent this one in. Big Tech is suffering from a great resignation of workers who say, it says a confluence of factors have led the rank and file at big tech companies to leave what were coveted jobs a decade ago for potential riches of pandemic burnout. It says the great resignation of workers who say, quote unquote, it's a great time to leave. Pandemic burnout, backlash against tech companies that have grown powerful, and the chance to cash in at a suddenly flush startup, and young public companies with potential for more growth cited as reasons for leaving. And the first little bit says a confluence of factors have led the rank and file of big tech companies to leave what were coveted jobs a decade ago for the potential riches of startups and young public companies, with some participants calling it the Great Resignation. In much the same way that Apple, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and others lured workers from mature and seemingly staid tech giants like IBM a decade ago, the new generation of upstarts flush with cash from venture capitalists and Wall Street is aiming for their employees. Indeed, that is a great point to be made that we haven't really made, which is all of this startup funding, and we announced that it's a record year for 2021 already. We already shattered the record of 2020 of about 18 billion. We just passed it in the first 6 months of 2021. That means we're likely to hit 160 billion, double last year. That's unbelievable, unimaginable. We normally grow up or down by single digit percentage. So to grow by 100% in a year is just unfathomable. And what that does mean is all of those startups who get that money, they are going to attract, their first target is people at, senior people at the big tech companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon and what have you. And if those companies are no longer growing like they used to, it's hard to contain that level of growth when you're the world's 5 biggest companies. Going to a startup and working for a percentage of ownership in those companies, that's called equity, that's called stock options in those companies. You get, as an early employee, 1%, 2% of the company if you're real early and real senior, and you get 0.1%, 0.2%, if you're less senior and less early, that can still turn into $1 billion very quickly. If you're 1% and it becomes $100 billion company, as Stripe did, there you go. That's $1 billion. So the potential to join, make millions of dollars, not a billion. That's if you're 1% of the company and it becomes worth 100 million, which they all do within a month, then you're already at $1 million. If it makes it to a 1 billion valuation, you're already at the 10 million stage. It's like, it seems like a smart way to go for a lot of these senior folks to join some of these hotter startups that are getting very well funded at the moment. And there's an unprecedented number of them. And so that is an interesting point, that some of the people are going to be leaving due to the amazing amount of VC funding going into startups that is going to have an impact on the bigger tech companies. So, interesting.
Your favorite two words is...
Tyler? Sorry, is that related also because we've been discussing earlier that you have this some of the employees trying to unionize
That too.
themselves towards tech
Too.
companies. That's one side probably, because again you have more options. You can move earlier. The pressure for the companies to keep people probably is changing, and that also changes maybe salary packages and anything around that on one side. On the other side also, I've earlier also retweeted something where they predict that the peak is over now as the pandemic is going, let's say, is easing up things, and companies or countries are recovering. Also, Cal had a nice article on that, on the race to recover. But the question is now, what is the bet here? Is it still going? is the attraction and the investment in the digitalization still keeping beyond a potential downturn of the pandemic itself? Or do you think it will increase, that's it, the strength of an individual worker as a service giver to the tech companies?
I'll tell you one other thing. The kind of to your point, just the fact that they're getting cracked down on by Washington D.C. with these 5 bills, and this kind of tonality of the big tech companies are too powerful and blah 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 blah. A lot of people work at the big tech. Not all. I have obviously lots of friends that work at the big tech companies. We have Michelle on stage who works at Facebook. And I would love her comment on this, which is, for some people, they become the huge part of their identity that they work at Google, because Google's this great company and is changing the world and is powerful, and they identify that. As soon as former Microsoft employees can say, when Microsoft started getting cracked down on and they were the big company, and then at some point they weren't, and they were, the antitrust stuff started cracking down on Microsoft, it just changes your own feeling about your own identity of working at this company, and it adds a new negativity to it that you previously didn't have, and it kind of weighs on some people. They want to work at a company where everyone says, oh, wow, when you say where you work at. And that Google used to be that way. When you used to say, I work at Google or Facebook or Apple, people, your friends and colleagues at lunch or at breakfast on Sunday would be, oh, wow, you work at Google, you work at Facebook, you work at Amazon. And if they don't say that anymore, and now when you're at Sunday brunch and you meet somebody and you say, oh, yeah, I work at Google or Amazon, and they say, oh, I hear you're getting sued, it just changes your excitement about working at that company. So that does play a factor. I've seen it in my own personal friends.
On the net promoter score, basically.
It's not net promoter score, because that's a scoring. Yeah, I mean, it's employees and how they feel about their own company, and the value. For some people, you work at a company for money. You get paid a salary. That's why you're working there. And then for some people, there's another factor, which is the impressing people you meet in line at Starbucks, who say, oh, where do you work? And you say, oh, I work at company X. And there's this, oh, wow factor. Well, that oh, wow factor used to be real for people who worked at Facebook, Google, Amazon, Google, whatever. And that's no longer true. Now it's the opposite. Now you're in line at Starbucks, and the person next to you in line for the bathroom says, oh, where do you work? And you're like, you're no longer, when you say you work at Google or Amazon, and the person says, oh, that's great, I hear you're being sued and you're a monopoly and you're doing this evil shit. Now you're like, you know what? I don't get this thing I used to get. That used to be very valuable to me, which was impressing people that I worked at this company. And now it's no longer, not only is it not impressive, it's people are saying, negative things about this company that I used to be so fond of. So this thing that used to be of actual value to me, of impressing people.
You mean the ego booster?
Huh?
Ego booster.
Like an
ego
yes.
booster?
Well, it's an ego issue. Exactly. It's an ego issue.
Yeah.
But Tyler,
there's
a sociological side of things as well, which is, people after the last 2 years, people have gotten used to working remote, and that work-life balance has significantly shifted now. And you'll see a lot of these startups now really wanting to offer a much healthier work-life balance and more controllability. So there's other factors involved, right?
Sure.
And then as a startup, you're hiring for the best talent, and you're hiring for the people that have the established processes so that they can help you really learn, how to take your company from concept into commercialization.
Well, I'll give you another one.
I
am optimistic enough. I'm crazy enough to think that also with the planet and these fires and the
Oh yeah, we want to. You're finding people that want to make an impact. Like
Well,
like
it's
um,
more than ever. I think there's the concept of I want to make an impact. The planet is in peril, and I want to help it. And now it's like with actual your relatives fleeing their own homes, and California's out of water, and this, when shit really starts hitting the fan, you're gonna see the smart folks who Google and Apple and Facebook and in Amazon.
it's all linked to survival though, right?
This is
Like
my point.
my personal story is I jumped in to help during the crisis, and we discovered something that's highly commercialable, is scalable into like low income, middle income environments because it's a piece of plastic that's a ventilator. And the people that are with me, my team, they are the right stuff. They all jumped in for the same reasons. I've barely met two or three of them because we met at a business conference or something, but they're all in because we're sick of the way things used to be. We want to be part of that change. And in this process, someone's shown us what a cap table is, to be quite frank. And that's our golden handcuffs. Now we're going to finish that mission. We're going to try to meet the goals to hit what's on the cap table, and that's going to change our life
Yeah,
forever.
I'm just saying that
All right.
the concept of the planet in peril is very different from you having to flee your own home, and so when it becomes very personal and existential to yourself and you or your family, it's a total utter game changer. Just like the people in Texas and Florida who are now getting COVID, who are making videos begging who were very anti-vax, and they're now on their deathbeds in the ICUs. And I don't have you guys been watching these? I'm seeing these all the time now.
Yeah, it's
They are
tragic.
tragic,
It's it,
and
it's
they're
it like they beg for the vaccine as they're getting intubated. Intubation, folks, and I know I'm making ventilators. You don't want to use my products ever. It's the worst thing that a human being can experience. My grandfather personally asked for a DNR instead of being intubated, and they just let him go. And they're asking at that moment, please give me a vaccine, and the doctors have to tell them this doesn't work like this. And that's when the light bulb turns on, and they
Well,
realize
this is
how
my
wrong
point: is
they've been.
when your hometown runs out of water or goes up in fire, then you realize, I should probably stop working on this ad network and start doing something around lowering the carbon in the atmosphere. So this is my point. As it's going to get to the point where it becomes personal for people. It's not yet personal; it's still theoretical for 99.9% of people. And as it becomes more personal, you're going to see people jump into try and fix the boat from sinking. So,
Morning,
yes,
Tyler.
Simon,
Hi, it's Simon
South
from
Africa.
sunny South Africa at the moment. No, I mean two things. First of all, that issue about when fire doesn't mean anything to you unless it happens. In the Southern Cape about 3 years ago, we had these awful fires, and all of a sudden people started taking notice of the fact that the what we were doing to the environment. The other thing I was just going to say was that when you were talking about it used to be cool to work at Facebook. I mean, I'm one of those people who remembered you used to really be impressed if you met someone who worked at IBM. Now, oh, you work at IBM. It's one of those things. Oh, poor you kind
Yeah,
of thing.
Microsoft as well.
So
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's really interesting.
yeah. And you guys had a huge water drought 2-3 years ago. Did that wake people up to the importance of?
Yeah, no, that was Cape Town. That was what we were calling day zero, which was basically people were literally banking on the fact that Cape Town would run out of water, and that made a huge, a very kind of conscience growing environment. I mean, my daughter was in Cape Town then, my younger daughter who was at university then, and to have to queue with plastic containers of water to get your ration was a major thing. But we still have towns. I mean, we have the it's a major, used to be called Port Elizabeth. It's now called Gqeberha. But I mean, that is now having a water shortage. We've got others and essentially because we are and people have not spent a lot of time or a lot of effort making sure that there's enough water. They were just working on the basis that there would always be enough. And I mean, so it's like the Californians, and what we're discovering now all of a sudden is that climate change is giving us a big smack up the backside.
Yeah, and that's 500,000 people in Cape Town. So you got the next headline here is from Renjinth that Sweden now has a 10-minute delivery company called Cavale, which just raised about $6 million. And so adding Stockholm to the literally 10-minute, it says Cavale, the first company in Swedish market to offer the ever prevalent groceries to your door in under 10 minutes, has raised $6 million. 10 minutes. Why go out of the house? You can order from your toilet and walk straight to your door to receive it. So anyway, the next big headline is from Faraz. It says Maple Grove project shows how suburban transit stations are morphing into Uber, Lyft, and taxi hubs. So they're converting bus stops into Uber, Lyft, and taxi stops so that it kind of makes sense. We did this kind of in LA around LAX to some degree. But you'd have these predefined areas where that the Ubers and Lyfts and taxis will coordinate around bus stops. It actually makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised it took this long. The next one from Mahogany is from the Smithsonian. It says a new project aims to create the most detailed 3D map of the universe. An instrument named DESI, DESI, will chart up to 50 million galaxies, 10 times more than any previous survey, and in 3D, which now makes me realize that the VR map of the universe would be truly kind of mind-blowing. To kind of swim through the universe in, let alone the Milky Way, in VR. To see the universe in VR. That would be truly wild. Anyway, likely to come in our lifetime, indeed. The next one, this is super wild. I'm just tweeting this out now. You kind of have to see it. It's about real-time deep fake streaming with an app called Deep Face Live. So deep fakes, if you combine deep fakes and FaceTime, you get Deep Face Live. And the company is called Unite.ai, the world's most used deep fake software, and the one most strongly associated with deep fake porn is getting a new implementation, the ability to do live streaming while deep faking. So you can do a live stream and look like yourself, but more beautiful. And those are the really interesting examples that they show in this app, where they show a guy who's live streaming who converts himself into what looks like an incredibly attractive model like female face. Margot Robbie is who he's deep faking Margot Robbie, but with his own hair. So it's Margot Robbie's face on his face. And it looks incredibly real. You'd be hard to tell if it wasn't real. And then they use the Margot Robbie transformation videos on lots of other people, where it makes them look like themselves but more beautiful, essentially. And it's a really wild concept. But eventually,
This has got huge applications in that whole personalized. When we're talking about fans and stuff, like if Taylor Swift could do a personalized video saying, "Hey, happy birthday to so and so."
Yeah.
But in a more rich live conversation.
There's a YouTube video as well that is embedded in this, and I will now tweet out the YouTube video where he makes himself into Arnold Schwarzenegger while he's live streaming, like as a YouTube host, and Margot Robbie and others. It's really mind-blowing and indeed has big implications, and I think anyone can use this app. So, next big headline at the moment is the original interactive VR film called The Final Wish, shortlisted for an award for the 78th Venice International Film Festival. And the Venice Film Festival is one of the best film festivals globally. And now a VR film is shortlisted as a winner of the Venice Film Festival. So VR getting uptick, into film, and eventually will likely take it over. The Wired podcast, which is Wired magazine and blog, has a podcast where they dive deep into the collapse of Amazon's drone delivery team in the UK, which we referred about earlier. I'm earmarking this one because I really want to hear what's really going on with that drone delivery team in the UK. And then the next headline is these incredible floods in North Korea, similar to what happened in Germany and Central Europe a few weeks ago, is now hitting. Thousands are evacuated from North Korean floods. The state broadcaster says some regions have seen over 20 inches of rain in 3 days, 50 centimeters of rain in 3 days. And the floods show the homes up to their roofs. They're flooded.
Because of typhoon, I think.
Perhaps.
There's a typhoon.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's the typhoon feeds into kind of floodplains. And anyway, you can see, I've never seen a house flooded up to the roof before, but you will if you look at the Twitter account. And then here's a super important one from The Guardian, from Poppy. Why Instagram's creatives are angry about its move to video. I can tell you why without even reading the article, because Instagram influencers spent the past decades getting followers based on pointless images of them looking beautiful, based on photo editing, and they tweak the shit out of their photos and use third-party apps to wildly edit their Instagram photos to make things look fabulous and fantastic. And that doesn't really apply to video. So now that Instagram's going over to video and e-commerce video and live streaming shopping, because that's where the money is. Again, that's where the billions and billions and that's where their future is, unquestionably. And the Instagram influencers are realizing being a beautiful young 26-year-old taking fabulous photos is indeed worthless when it comes to doing live streaming e-commerce. And so their favorite app is dying and reimagining itself like a butterfly from a caterpillar, and they're not going to be part of that new genesis of Instagram's eventual butterfly transition as a e-commerce live streaming app. And so how am I going to show the world, that I'm this beautiful young Instagram influencer? What's going to happen to my life, of my value of myself, what my millions of followers? What's going to happen? Well, you're going to lose them to people who are really good at selling stuff on Instagram, and they're going to make lots of money. So anyway, that's just, I predicted this was coming, which is basically the skills that Instagram, the most popular people on Instagram have a particular skill, which is not very useful in the future of Instagram as a platform. And so that's why they're freaking out. And let's see if we can find a good quote. Here's a quote. I can see why everyone's starting to panic about their accounts, because you're going from hitting 500 likes on a photo back down to 100. I know lots of photographers have taken breaks from using Instagram because they start thinking maybe their photos aren't good enough, is one quote. Here's this story I just tweeted out just talks about someone named Mosseri started his announcement video by claiming that Instagram wants to empower creators to make a living on the site. Yeah, you and I know what that means. It's e-commerce. But both Biding and Waplington have seen sales suffer. Perhaps the highlights the difference between creators and creatives. In April, writer and Washington University media professor Ian Bogost argued that the creator is someone whose work is wholly circumscribed by the platform, while creators makes content that can only exist within a certain app. Many creatives simply put their offline art online. To put it another way, Instagram's creators can only exist on Instagram. Instagram's creatives can go anywhere. Okay, so we're now, yeah.
I'm curious. I had tweeted something. Maybe I did it too early, like 24 hours ago. I thought you would have picked up on this already, so I want to make sure you get to it. It's in dollar value. It's pretty big, at least in the United States. Charter Communications, which is the second largest cable company in the U.S., is being sued by all the music companies for $400 million because they're claiming that they allowed their users, the people who subscribe to Charter Internet Service, to upload and download copyrighted stuff, for mostly music, to things like YouTube. And Cox Communications, which is also another large cable company out here, happens to be mine. They've been ordered to pay the music companies $1 billion. Okay, and I'm like sitting there saying, like, they really can't control this. I don't know what they want them to
Right.
do. And I tweeted that like 24 hours, so I know it's somewhere in your stuff. Okay, so I just thought it was like a big dollar number, and I know you know a lot about music copyrights and stuff, so I thought that would interest you.
Yeah, by the way, I know who's suing them, but let's unpack who's suing them exactly.
Universal, Sony, all the big
Yeah,
ones.
there's three: Universal, Sony, and
Warner,
EMI.
probably.
So
Well, Sony is
yeah. Well,
EMI.
the Warner,
Sony
they
bought
merged. So Warner, EMI, Sony, and Universal. So you've got the big labels who are working together, and they're also trying to force Twitter to license their content. They tricked all of their artists into signing contracts that gave them all of the streaming rights, digital distribution rights, it's called, distributing your music digitally. And so, because they have all of the rights of all of the artists, they have all the catalogs, and they have the rights to do any digital distribution of that content. And so originally, Spotify wanted to do that, and Spotify paid the licenses, and and they did a deal. And then they went after YouTube, of course, because YouTube's doing that. Okay, great. And now who else can we shake down? And they're asking Twitter, and Twitter's like, no, we don't actually host any of the content. We just provide a link to other people who are hosting your content, but we ourselves don't host any of the content. So when people put in a link to a YouTube video, they're not allowed to upload a song directly. They can link to somewhere else that's hosting the song. And so we're not hosting anything.
But the cable companies, as you know, are not
no,
hosting it
I'm
either.
getting into that.
They're just like its
The
umpire.
cable company also is not hosting any content, but they're enabling, and this is where the labels are saying, we have a contract right here that says we have the right to distribute music, and you as a cable you're distributing our content in the forms of ones and zeros between the website and the user, and we have that exclusive right to distribute that content digitally.
Even though the real infringer is the cable
Of
subscriber.
course,
It's
the
John.
user requesting that content, and they're getting it. And the labels are going to try and hold the cable company's feet to the fire by saying you're digitally distributing that content to that user illegally, and you're going to have to stop doing that, or you're going to have to pay us for our rights. And then it goes to court, and
Well, Cox already
that's what I'm
lost.
saying. Of
It's $1
course,
billion.
I got you,
It's,
because they're
it's
they're
amazing.
digitally distributing the content, and the labels have the exclusive right to do that.
So, what would you do if you ran a cable company? Well, how do they stop this?
You'd have to
Identity verification.
Identity verification would be one, and then anything that has a .mp3 or .mp4 or .mov, you'd have to blacklist and all known file types, similar to what YouTube does as well. When you try to upload a file, it has a fingerprint, an audio fingerprint. They'll have to start doing fingerprinting of they're going to have to tell the labels, okay, give us the fingerprints of all of the content that you claim is yours. YouTube knows this as well. So when you try to upload a song that you don't own the rights to and someone else does, they say, oh, you don't own those rights. So they should basically Shazam your entire. Matter of fact, if I play Ground Control to Major Tom, the sound file, in this room, I'll do 2 seconds of it, and let's see if I get flagged this time. There, I played the one guitar strum of the beginning of, David Bowie's Space Odyssey Major Tom. Or the X-Files theme, if I play those sound clips, YouTube says, oh, you live streamed a video, and in your live stream, somewhere in the middle of a 4-hour live stream, there's 3 seconds of you playing the X-Files theme. We have a takedown notice of content infringement, because they have all of those fingerprints of all of that intellectual property. And the cable companies could make it part of their settlement to say, give us all of your fingerprints of all of your content that you own, and we'll scan all of our. Anytime a user tries to download a file, we're going to take a little listen to that file first, or the fingerprint of that file, so that we know that's a infringing file and not allow them to download it. There's technical ways to do it. It would be very cumbersome. I'll give you that. But in the face of paying $1 billion, I imagine they might be inclined to.
No, but the amazing thing is most people,
Yeah.
okay, who download this stuff and then upload it, but I mean, it goes to various places. A lot of people put it on YouTube, and what YouTube's actually done is, they've kind of cut a deal with a lot of the copyright holders, and rather than take it down for infringement, they give everybody they give them a little cut,
Yes,
pay them a
they
little
become the
bit.
monetizer of the video. Yes.
So I'm surprised that isn't more widespread, that they're that, like, rather than paying all this money. I guess they're saying some people are probably putting this stuff up on Facebook and Twitter, and Facebook and Twitter are not doing what YouTube is doing in getting people paid, I'm guessing, or something.
Right, but they're not. Nor are they hosting the content. They're not distributing the content. It's a different issue. So anyway, the cable companies are likely to lose, and so they're going to have to.
They already
I know.
lost.
Well, Cox did,
already
yeah,
lost.
but the other major cable company and all the cable companies need to pay close attention to, because now there's a precedence and they're in the same scenario. So that court case is stacked against them. So they either have to build a technical solution to stop their users from downloading copyrighted content for free, or pay the piper, which in this case is the labels, not the artists.
Or they could turn some of their own customers, make an example of them,
That too.
like the music
They can punish
industry
you.
20
Yeah,
years
for
ago, right?
sure.
Yeah. And then people stop doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too. Open, the big open letter to Apple. We covered that one. And then there's a bunch more that we haven't read, like this one. In the wild world of tech hiring in India, engineer is now king. I told you this was coming. I told you this. This is the headline. The COVID-19 pandemic-led internet and technology boom has led to an accelerated shift to digital, and now engineers in India are now the top of the pecking order pyramid, because all of these tech global companies are now global. Oh, what do you know? In India, there's engineers in India. Who would have guessed? How much do they want to work? Oh shit, they're willing to work for 1/10 of what we're paying people in California. Yes, please. We would like to meet every PhD computer science engineer in India, please. Immediately. They will all get hired instantly. Any good tech talent globally is going to get hired in the next year. Period. So, and that's going to drive down the value, the salary base for the American tech talent. This is simple stuff. This is really simple economics. So the folks begging to work remotely, even though the companies were saying, no, let's go back to the office, and the employees were like, no, we want to be able to work from anywhere, anytime, essentially are shooting themselves in the foot with regard to their salary. They can themselves, of course, now that they can work anywhere, they're going to have to work anywhere. They're going to have to relocate to places where it costs a quarter of what it costs to live in California. And many of them are starting to do that.
Or out of the country, like you taught us that life
You
hack.
save $35,000-ish a year instantly by living outside of the U.S. just on an instant tax discount on your. So yeah, but now it'll become more like the salary that they're willing to pay isn't suitable for living in California. So you're going to see a mass exodus of people, and we read a headline, did we not, of people, leaving the big tech companies. You can work at startups and work in California because they don't yet really have the skills to hire internationally in the same kind of way. They do. It's not, they're only a year behind the big tech companies in being able to employ people. The legalities and of doing all of that. The big tech companies have that. The smaller tech companies will about a year from now, once all of the startups that are enabling that are getting funded now to do HR globally, to do compliance with hiring and international teams. That's all happening now really fast.
Hey, Tyler, can I
Hey,
ask you a academic? I'm sorry.
sorry, I was just going to add before. Sorry to interrupt, but if you read that article, there's a guy called Bhavish Aggarwal, who's the CEO of Ola. Ola is like an Uber local company, and he actually tweeted some time ago saying, and he's got a lot of stick on social media on it, saying, "I'm really struggling to find high quality engineering talent in India. There's such competition. Maybe I need to outsource or offshore to low cost destinations like San Francisco." Right? So, and he took a lot of shit
No, no,
for it on Twitter.
he knows how to
Or
get good PR.
or,
That's masterful
or
PR.
Moldova, right, Vinay?
Sorry, what
Or
is that?
Moldova, right?
Moldova.
Yeah, Moldova.
Or
Yeah, that's
We're
true.
all moving to Moldova in the end. Yeah. By the way,
hey, so Tyler,
By the way, Tyler, Moldova has a Subway franchisee who hasn't opened yet. So
are you
hey, there's
you looked
opportunity
into
there
that?
for you,
Did
my
you?
friend. I looked into it. I needed to make sure you.
My God,
Um,
DJ, you are
By the way,
serious.
I've been to Moldova. I, I, I'm still years later shocked how cheap it was. It's literally one of the cheapest cities on the planet. I mean, a cup of coffee. You go to a cafe, you're talking like 10 cents to get a coffee in a cafe, and it blew my mind. I just could not believe how a hotel. It's the only place in the world where when I arrived and the taxi driver gave me a quote to go to the hotel, it was like 5 kilometers away. It was like 50 cents to take a taxi 5 kilometers. And, your first instinct is to negotiate with the taxi driver, in foreign countries like that, in that part of the world, in Eastern Europe. And I was like, wait a minute, that's 50 cents. Never mind. Okay. I'm not going to negotiate for the ride. Just, 50 cents to go 5 kilometers from a taxi, non Uber, it's just
no extradition.
no extradition. Hello. Anyway,
Hey, so
and it's a tax
Tyler,
haven. It's a tax
Ty,
haven. Sorry, Chris.
sorry, Tyler in the room. An academic discussion here, if you don't mind. Startup versus established company. We know the upside's much higher on a startup, but in an inflationary environment, say cost of living skyrockets in California, do you think a startup is toast versus a more, established company, or do you think the established company pulls its layoff routine, or like what do you think happens here?
give it to me again. As cost of what goes up?
Basically, like things are getting really
Oh yeah, the
expensive, right?
inflation. Yeah,
And a big company may be able to
sure.
bear, cost of living increases more than a
Yeah,
startup, right? So do you think startups have any kind of gun in this fight if this
I
happens?
think startups are likely to be much more decentralized now that they're allowed to and play the same game that the big companies are doing, hiring everywhere. And I mean, this looking at, it's like Scandinavia is not cheap to live in either and build teams there. And then they tend to go more international more quickly. Norway, most of all, is like the most expensive place on the planet to build a startup. And let's see what the Norwegians are doing. That might give an indication. It's like $30 for a salad there. So
Hey,
yeah.
Chris, come
Chris,
here. You should come here in Nevada. I mean, 70% of the homes that we're selling here now are the Californians. We have no income tax, and the cost of housing here is a fraction of of
You're going to
California.
have that. You're going to have mayors. You're having it in Florida. Suarez already is like, hey, what are you crazy people doing over there in California? We've got no income tax over here. Get on over here. And it's this huge drive to try and make Miami, an alternative tech city. And it's to some extent working. You're going to see other mayors start to copy his success in doing that. And
A lot of my
Chris,
Wall Street friends from the Northeast have moved down to Florida because of COVID and because of taxes. Because quite frankly, South Florida used to have kind of a stigma in the investment community as being kind of like shifty. If this company was in like Boca Raton, it was always suspect, but not anymore.
yeah, and Chris, to add to your question, startup or this, I think with the money that's chasing startups now, the VC funding available, I was talking to a VC friend last night on Sunday, and he told me that a lot of the money being raised by startups is for talent and to make sure with the stock options, etc. I think in the short run, talent's going to go more to startups than established companies.
okay. Next headlines here. One from Poppy. Apple's stunning plan to strike Facebook with brilliant new iPhone features. Apple has a stunning plan to strike data-hungry Facebook with brilliant new iPhone features. I think I know what you're writing about, Forbes. And you're about, I don't know, 6 weeks behind on this one. We've been covering, we've moved way beyond this story, but now your cousins and coworkers are reading it in Forbes, where it says Apple is about to strike Facebook with a major blow that will hit the data-hungry social network's revenues and could force it to change its ways. Oh, Kate O'Flaherty, this is old news, Kate. That's because in September this year, Apple will launch iOS 15 update, bringing with it multiple new iPhone features. Among these are privacy reports, which will show you how often apps access your iPhone's camera and contacts, as well as highlighting which third-party domains you are contacting and when. And in iOS 15, Apple is also introducing features that will help it put a stop to email tracking on your iPhone. The iPhone maker is also enhancing its Safari browser with privacy controls, such as its iCloud and Private Relay. It comes after Apple introduces app tracking transparency in iOS 14.5. At the end of April, the new iPhone feature hurts the likes of Facebook, making tracking across apps and websites opt-in only. Yes, we know. We're geeks. This is old news for us. This is for my cousins to read. Thank you.
Next week, she's going to be talking about social commerce.
Social commerce, and I think 15-minute deliveries. Have you been hearing about this? No. Well, we'll be hearing about it next week in Forbes. China punishes dozens of officials as Delta outbreaks spread. China has punished a slew of officials for failing to curb COVID-19 outbreak that spawned nearly 900 symptomatic infections across the country in less than 3 weeks. Amazon to mandate for all its workers in its warehouses starting today. Amazon will require all of its 900,000 U.S. warehouse workers, otherwise known as industrial athletes, to wear masks indoors, regardless of their vaccination status. And these are the 100 hottest startups in Europe, according to Wired, which generally has a good sense of these things. I just retweeted this out so you can see the hottest 100 European startups. They have them broken down by countries, where they name London, then Amsterdam, then Stockholm, Barcelona, Dublin, Tel Aviv, Helsinki. Tel Aviv is being included in Europe for some reason. Berlin, Paris, and Lisbon are coming soon. And then they segment them by country. So naturally, I'm clicking on Stockholm, where they now list Volta, Anyone, Grace Health, Curb, Offscript, Sauna Labs, who we had in here, by the way, which is the AI-based edtech company. And you'll remember Joel Hellermark probably, and Dave, I think you do, right? You had a chat with Joel here in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he and 9 other startups are being listed as the hottest startups in Europe, according to Wired. So there you go. And then the next article is that Tesla quietly delays the Cybertruck to 2022, which is really sad news because I've got a pre-order on the Cybertruck myself. Tesla has quietly pushed back the Cybertruck release to 2022 as its electric pickup suffers production challenges. Probably some kind of chip shortage going on somewhere. And then this one from the BBC, climate change, new report will highlight stark reality of warming. The IPCC's short scientific summary, due out on Monday, that's today, will be the strongest statement yet on climate change. And then here's a crazy one that I found yesterday from foreignpolicy.com. That says and shows the quote, the headline says, I just tweeted it out right now. You can see it. The quote is the headline. The headline reads, "We fell off the face of the earth. Opposition politicians are disappearing into Turkey's massive new prison system." To call it a prison system is quite an understatement. This is bigger than it. Pardon my Turkish, but this is a massive concentration camp. The likes of Auschwitz looks very similar to the Uyghur camps in East Turkmenistan or Turkestan as they call it. And it says there's a huge drone or aerial photograph of these huge Turkish, they're calling them prisons, but holy cow. And now their opposition leadership is disappearing into these camps. And they have a map of the country where they're building all the camps. They have an overview of the camps themselves with scale. So it's wild. You got to see this article. So Erdogan's doing what tough guys usually do and disappearing his competition. You can see that one there. And then
It's not tough guy. This is called weak guy.
Okay. So the next one is Internet Censorship 2021, a global map of internet restrictions. And it shows a global map of where countries are the most and least restricted. Turns out Mongolia, surrounded by, you got to see the map. The worst countries for internet censorship are North Korea and China, scoring an impressive 11 out of 11 possible. No map on online censorship would be complete without these two at the top of the list. There isn't anything either of them doesn't heavily censor thanks to their iron grip over the entire internet. Users are unable to use Western social media, watch porn, or use torrents or VPNs, and have backdoors into all their apps, according to the report. So you can read all about that. I just tweeted that out. The next hot headlines, we've got, my apologies to everybody, because we've got tons of them. There's one here from the LA Times. Climate change has reached an unprecedented and dangerous level, says the UN report. And where there's people, it's getting wild. And then someone in the audience sent this one in, how smart data management will allow biopharma to embrace the digital twin. So we're going to have just bizarre, massive improvements in biopharma. Drugs for everything is going to happen in the next few years. Vaccines for everything. Potential cures for cancer are easily being predicted. Amazon India allows picking up of online orders from more retail outlets, so you don't even have to wait for your delivery. You can go pick it up much more quickly. AI bias is prevalent but preventable, and here's how to root it out, is the headline from VentureBeat. Just tweeting that one out. And climate scientists reach unequivocal consensus on human-made catastrophe. The UN-backed environmental panel on climate change, nearly a decade, sees no end to the rising temperatures, and there's crazy photos with that one. And the IPCC report is now live on YouTube right now. Just started, and I just tweeted that out, so you can watch, as I'm about to do, the IPCC tragic report that the last 5 headlines were all about. And the BBC and everyone's reporting this. So we're going to end. It's live. It's live now on YouTube. I just tweeted out the link. We can all watch it together.
Dan's got a room open.
Dan's got a room open on it right now. And so you can go over there. You can watch it live on YouTube from the tweet I just tweeted out. And we'll pause now and we'll join here again in 5.5 hours as we normally do for the next version. And thank you everybody for another fun version of Tech News Around the World. We'll see you in 5.5 hours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler.